because I'm invariably going to screw something up, but I'll do my best not to. So go ahead and start the meeting with introductions down to my right.
Brian Cooper.
Charlene Douglas, and anyone thinking they can bring pirate jokes will get crushed.
Joseph Murphy, Director of Planning.
Josh Markham, City Attorney's Office.
Jim Ellison.
Mike Fournier, Mayor.
And I'm Woody Gontina, serving as chair tonight. So first on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May meeting. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read those. Are there any questions, concerns, revisions? A motion?
I'll move the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
A motion to approve by Mr. Ellison. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Cooper. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Moving on the agenda is public comment. We value everyone's opinion. We just ask that everyone treat this as an official meeting, no clapping, hoot and hollering, that sort of thing. If there's anyone that wishes to speak on any non-agenda items, please let me know and I will call you up. All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and close public comment. Oh, I'm going to open public comment back up and allow Mr. Harrison to come up and speak.
Thank you. I just didn't want to be first, and I didn't realize there was nobody behind me. I went to the MDOT presentation in Birmingham. Was there any of you that went to that presentation about Woodward Avenue and what they're planning on doing at Woodward Avenue? Okay. I wrote a memo and attached a couple of attachments to Holly Donahue, and she had advised me that she sent that memo and attachments on to you folks. Did you see it? I figured so. Anyway, ask her to and take a look at it. MDOT in their inimitable style screwed it up. They don't like our master plan idea. They have an idea of running the buses down the inside lane adjacent to the median. So people will have to cross all the lanes to get to the median to board the bus. And I'm sure you all recognize that the doors on the bus are on the right-hand side, so unless they buy new buses, people are going to have to cross in front of the bus into traffic to get onto the bus. Again, not something I wouldn't expect from MDOT. And there's no plan for bicycle lanes. They don't like the idea, nor do I, of having the bicycles going down the median. With the Michigan U-turn, it would be a disaster. So anyway, that's my comment, and I would hope that you take a look at the memo from Holly. Did you get the memo from Holly? No response. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Anyone else wishing to speak at public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, thanks. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to item 4, which is unfinished business. And the first item is a public hearing on a zoning ordinance text amendment, and I will turn it over to Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. In the late 1990s, the city was developing back then a new master plan, and a major concern from the residents was voiced over the characteristics of new homes that were being built in established neighborhoods. And largely their concern was, one of the major components of their concern was houses that were being built that were either projecting, the attached garage was projecting out in front of living space, or it was a dominant visual feature of the front of the home. So to address that concern, the master plan at that point in time added some language suggesting zoning ordinance text amendments to try and combat that design. And in 2001, there were some standards established. Those standards have since been modified, And I'll bring up on the screen the provisions that we currently have in our ordinance ordinance. And it states that the width of an accessory building shall not be greater than 50% of the total width of the principal building's primary facade as determined by the zoning administrator. So we regard the following as accessory buildings or structures. So an attached garage, a detached garage, a shed, a carport, a pool house, anything of that nature. And all of those meet the definition of accessory building in the zoning ordinance. Accessory uses are reasonable and customarily ancillary or incidental to the primary use of the property. In the case of a property in the one-family residential zoning district, that would be a single-family home. We maintain that at no point at the primary facade or beyond the primary facade of the house may the width of an attached garage or an accessory structure be wider than the primary facade. And that is with the absence, presence, or width of overhead doors and sidewalls associated with the attached accessory structure. Those are not a factor. In 2017, the Zoning Board of Appeals heard an administrative review request regarding our determination on how to measure the width of an attached accessory structure. And ZBA's review was limited in scope to the configurations involving a front entry attached accessory structures with exceeding 50% beyond the exterior wall. And to give you a visual of that, I'll show you this graphic that's in the report. So you'll see this example on the left side of the screen of a first floor of a proposed house. The house has a front entry attached garage, a porch, and entrance to a foyer and a study. And you can see that the floor plan shows the attached garage on the primary facade being about 50% of the front facade of the house, but as the floor space extends backward, it grows larger and becomes more dominant component. And that at that point, it's more than 50% of the facade of the structure, primary structure, and that's the determination that this limited of scope that the Zoning Board of Appeals considered. And the Zoning Board did overturn the determination, and they concluded that the width is measured at the exterior wall of the primary facade, not beyond that exterior wall. So the ZBA's determination did affirm the then master plan, and it did not amend the zoning ordinance. In in fall of last year, the petitioner applied for a building permit to construct a new home that didn't comply with the ordinance provision that an attached accessory structure be limited to no more than 50% of the front facade. And the petitioner went to the Zoning Board of Appeals to seek a variance from that ordinance requirement. They were denied the variance request, and they have subsequently now applied for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. And their text amendment is highlighted in yellow on the screen. And it adds the following sentence to the zoning ordinance provision with regard to accessory buildings not more than being 50% of the front facade. It states, for attached garages integral to the principal building, the width shall be based on the width of the garage door openings. So we don't support this text amendment due to its limited reference to one type of accessory structure. So I had referenced at the beginning, we consider carports, lean-tos, porte-cocheres, all of those are accessory structures that can be integral to the design of a house. And we'll look at some photographs to show examples of those. Their proposed text amendment fails to apply to accessory floor area that's not accessed via a front entry overhead door. There's nothing that it does nothing to prevent an accessory structure from being a dominating component of the front facade of a house. The floor area dedicated to ancillary uses qualify under the zoning ordinance as accessory structures. Floor area is ancillary to the primary use of the property. And that even goes to the point where it's defined and governed by different standards under the Michigan Building Code, assessing property, I should say, real property tax law and related assessments. The requested text amendment wouldn't apply to accessory structures unless their floor area is directly accessed via a front entry overhead door along the primary facade. So not all accessory structures have an overhead door, and overhead doors and adjacent sidewalls can vary in size. So we're going to take a look on the screen at some different examples of accessory structures that are integral to the primary facade, but that they would not be counted, or their requested text amendment would not apply to the circumstance. So here you can see that there clearly is an integral attached garage, but it's a side entry attached garage. And so based on the petitioner's text amendment request, it would not apply to this proposed side entry attached garage. And we also look at an example where there's a component of this integral accessory structure to the house. A part of it is a side entry attached garage, a part of it is a front entry attached garage. Just the component with the single car space overhead door would apply to their requested text amendment. You also see an example of a house with an overhead door to an accessory structure, but that accessory structure expands doubly to the side. This component would not be included in their calculation. This component would. Here we look at examples of sidewalls that are not uniform in size. There's a large extended sidewall on the far side of this house in comparison to the opposite side. So by their definition, their requested text amendment, just the garage door itself would be calculated as the 50%, and it wouldn't include the expanded floor area to the side, or what we would refer to as a rather average size wing wall, or a rather average size sidewall. Since this does not have an overhead door, this would not be included in the 50% calculation. Same thing applies to this design. And same thing applies to the extended roof line, which is an integral part of this primary facade. There is no overhead door, therefore that calculation would not apply to this scenario. Now, this memo was written several months ago, so it still refers to the proposed master plan. Master plan has been adopted and includes specific language, which you see on the screen. And it also brings up the same point, the same concerns that neighbors had back in the late 1990s, that people are concerned about the type of home that's being built into existing neighborhoods. And so the master plan language states that we should look at standards that deserve scrutiny, including setbacks for homes and garages, and size of garages, dominant features. And so master plan has been adopted. We are now at the stage where we're going to continue to work to select a consultant to help us rewrite the entire zoning ordinance. And this is certainly a provision that we should look at when we rewrite the zoning ordinance. And we think it's an appropriate point, that is an appropriate point to consider some amendments to these provisions. The requested amendments, we don't regard them as a fix. By comparison, a comprehensive analysis of attached garages' size, scale, and context to the neighborhood, that is fulfilling the suggested direction of the approved master plan. So this is a zoning ordinance text amendment request, and there are some very specific criteria that are outlined in the zoning ordinance as to what criteria you should be considering when reviewing this text request. So that's shown on the screen. And then if you concur with staff, we have provided you with a suggested amendment to reject the proposed text amendment. Alternatively, if you agree with the petitioner, you can approve a motion that suggests that it move forward to the City Commission. Since this is a text amendment to an ordinance, it does require the City Commission to hold 2 readings of the proposed amendment. So that would move forward to the City Commission. And then alternatively, you can choose to do something different and have staff bring back for you research and suggested amendments that may differ slightly from the petitioner's proposal. So the petitioner is here. The petitioner has been an integral part to the city in building single-family homes and multifamily developments. They've certainly exhibited their talents and have contributed greatly to the city's housing stock. I think it would be appropriate for them to express why they feel the text amendment is necessary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy first? Mr. Cooper?
So, the bulk of the examples that we're seeing up there are, the bulk of the examples that were used, at least for picture context, those are really, except for that one, the bulk were like estate-sized lots that I don't think you really have a whole lot of in Royal Oak. I'm thinking of this in the standpoint of neighborhoods of bungalows where you've got 40-foot lots, 50-foot lots. So if you're going to base it upon the size of a garage door, whether it's a 16-foot or 2 8-foot doors, you now have no limits for your wing walls. You could essentially have a garage and a driveway that gobble up the entire front yard that has no character in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, in the Zoning Board of Appeals back in 2017, when they heard the administrative request, they struggled. There are a lot of different scenarios that you could come up with that would comply, wouldn't comply, and technicalities in the ordinance that people could use to get away with different designs. And that's where we think that it would be wise to bring in an outside firm that has provided this type of insight to mature suburban communities like ours that are experiencing infill development, and they may have some examples of text that would be, they would study what we have, and they would be able to suggest text amendments that may help us address these vexing problems.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and invite the applicant up to speak to their request. I do want to offer you the option of, since we do not have a full body tonight, offer you the option to postpone. You're welcome to continue forward, but we always want to give that option when we don't have a full body. So, would you like to continue to go forward with the?
You do have a quorum though, correct?
We do have a quorum. We just don't have a full body.
No, we're fine. We appreciate your time tonight.
Great, thank you.
So I'm Tim Lochran. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Robertson Homes. With me, I actually have some members of our team. Actually, all three live in Royal Oak, so it was very easy for them to be here. So we have Darry Newbecker, our president, Bob Doyle, our COO, and Jack Flynn, our land analyst. Last time I was in front of this board was a long time ago. It was our Normandy Oaks project, which we're very proud of. Hopefully the city is as well. I'd love to be in front of you for another similar type of project. I just can't find enough land in your city for that. So still looking, and hopefully something will come up. But in the meantime, we're really kind of relegated to, of course, we love Royal Oak, building what we call our in-town division, which is basically existing homes and turning them into big, beautiful homes that really meet the market needs. So the purpose of us being here tonight, it really comes down to a couple things. It comes down to aesthetics, it comes down to functionality, and it comes down to market preference. We have 5 homes that we're building now in our in-town division. We meet your ordinances fully with those. We have permits, so we're able to work within the ordinances, but we felt it was important just being involved in the community as much as we have, bringing to your attention what we think are some things that could be improved in the zoning ordinance. That's really the only reason we're here. We can move forward with what we have. We just feel like there are ways to make the ordinance a little bit better and a little bit more user-friendly, if you will, and that's why we're here. And I know you're doing a comprehensive look at your zoning ordinance. Perhaps that gets rolled into here. I know Mr. Murphy doesn't like the language I have in here, but really it's the concept that we wanted to bring to you, not the specific language. So this is your city. This is your decision, obviously. We just felt it was worth the effort to ask you to take a look at your ordinances. So I don't know who's running this. We'll move to the next one. Perfect. So this is exactly what Joe had talked to you about. Essentially what we're asking for is to add some language for attached garages, that the 50% rule does not include the wing walls. What's important is you don't want a huge garage dominating the front of your homes. We don't either, and that makes sense to have some kind of limitation. Adding the wing walls, we think, actually accentuates the garage. So that's why we're here in front of you tonight. Again, this language totally can be tweaked by staff or the commission to meet the needs if you feel the way we do. We do think it's important enough to come here and share it with you. This exact language, that's not what the intent is. It's really, as I mentioned, the concept. And specifically, it's talking about attached garages and the calculation, that 50% calculation, which I'll get into in a second. You can go to the next one, please. So it is a little confusing on how the city defines accessory building. I've got the definition of it here. It does reference detached structures in some other areas, but I know that this is how the city interprets garages as being accessory buildings. So, acknowledging that and moving forward, there is a 50% limit, as I mentioned. And really that limit is based on the exterior of the wing walls, not just the garage door, which really is the focus point of it. So we can go to the next slide here. I'll get to some of our rationale. So this applies to the entire portion, as I mentioned. But really that garage is really integral and aesthetically integral to the building itself. And I'll show you a couple pictures here, which I think are pretty important. So most of the builders, including us, to be honest, have kind of worked around the ordinance. And essentially what's happened is the wing walls have shrunk. So 2.5 feet is the kind of the industry standard for wing walls. And the reason for this is it gives you enough space in your garage to maneuver, to open the doors, to get out. It gives you enough space to have trash bins, to put them there until trash day. It just makes sense. Otherwise, you're talking about 1.5 feet, which just is not enough room in the garage for modern homes. And I'm going to get into why this all makes sense from a math standpoint and why we're here. But we feel the current requirements really lack functionality for the garage for our home buyers, and aesthetically it's not as pleasing. You'll see some pictures of it. It basically creates a narrow wing wall, which I think takes away from the attractiveness of the front elevation. So increasing the wing walls leads to the narrowing, as I mentioned, and it really worsens the appearance by pushing the garage door closer to the edge of the house, and it accentuates that door, as I talked about. So here's the math. On a 50-foot wide lot, which is what we're typically looking for this, and you have a lot of 50-foot wide lots in your city, essentially, because of garage door is 16 feet, and the wing walls, as I mentioned, are 2.5 feet, you're at 21 feet. That's going to bring you over 50% for the width of the house, because you only have a 40-foot building envelope with 5 and 5-foot setbacks. That's where it's a math equation, and that's where we're getting tripped up on this. So we redesign the homes, and that's fine. And again, if this is what the city wants, we'll continue that way. But we think because of this math equation, you're seeing this basically throughout with new homes. Trying to get around the provision. I don't think that that's what your intent is. Your intent, I'm assuming, and I think that's true from what I've spoken to planning, is to reduce the accentuation of the garage door. And I think this is not accomplishing that. And that's kind of the point why we're here tonight. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is what I'm talking about. So I actually just came from a walk on one of our homes that we're building right now. And this is the house that's next to it. It's a really nice house, but as you can see, on the side of the house, they met the requirement. If you do a 1.5-foot wing wall, you're going to be under that 50%, because it's 16 plus 1.5 plus 1.5. That's less than 50% of a 40-foot wide house. But what happens here is I think it really accentuates the garage more, because now you don't have enough space next to it. So it's aesthetics. It's also convenience for the homeowner. If you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but right there, they've got their trash outside. That was the first thing I noticed. So they keep their trash outside because they can't fit it in their garage because of the ordinance. We don't feel like that is something that's acceptable for our home buyers, nor do I think the city should think that that's acceptable too for a new home to have that provision. Of course, they could find room in their garage in the back of it. You got to jockey cars out and that sort of thing. But really, from a functionality standpoint, this is what happens. And I've seen it in I drove around a lot today, and I saw a lot of them like that. The house on the left is what we had proposed, that's what we submitted, that's what we then had to go in front of the ZBA. We didn't have any unique circumstances, as you can imagine. They said you should go to the Planning Commission, so that's why I'm here. We think the house on the left is very attractive, and I think by having that wider wing wall, it really does add aesthetics and really reduces the impact of the garage. That's what we're trying to do. We can't do it under your existing ordinance. So ultimately, that's why I'm here, is to show the difference between what the current ordinance requires and what we would like to do. So in conclusion, I'll just kind of repeat some of this. We just feel like it creates clarity for builders in your community, and really for that consumer preferred design. That's something that the market is looking for. And it would meet your intent of reducing the impact of the garage door, which really should be first and foremost of this, not kind of convoluting some existing language. Again, I think you recognize the ordinance needs to be cleaned up. Certainly, we support that, and I think this is something that should be looked at. And really, from functionality and visual appeal, those wing walls are something that's integral. That's part of an architectural appendage that we think is important to keep in into the homes, not just for functionality, but also for appearance. So like to speak a little bit more about it if you have any questions, but really that's it. We think if you could address the calculation, and it really affects 50-foot wide lots and 40-foot wide homes. So I don't know how much everyone knew about this, but we wanted to bring it to your attention and have a conversation. So we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here and speaking to your request. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to this side and open it up to the board here to see if there's any questions or discussions on our side.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for bringing this idea to our attention. It's interesting. I got a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah.
But one of the things, I mean, this is all Royal Oak centric, right? We're talking about Royal Oak, and we're concerned about Royal Oak, but do you have any experience operating in other communities that have, like Berkeley or Madison Heights or other communities that have the same 40, 50-foot lot situation for a bulk of their properties? And what have we seen? Is there any study that you guys have done, any experience that you have, or any inclinations you want to share of how such a change, if it's not restricted in other communities, how it's affected those communities?
That's a great question, and we did do some research. Most communities actually don't have a kind of limitation. I applaud you guys for having it, to be honest. We did see a couple of them where it was 50% was just the garage door itself, but primarily I do not see any kind of limitation. So I think you should have a limitation. I just think it should kind of work a little bit better as far as what the ultimate goal is. But it's a good question. We did our research. There's not much out there to look at from other communities.
Anyone else? Commissioner Douglas?
So why couldn't and I'm not sure quite how to articulate this, but with the what is permitted now, why can't the interior of the garage encroach into the house space to create room for that storage for those garbage bins?
Sure, it can, and that's what we did. We stole some room from the foyer to do that, which is something we can live with. It still doesn't address the fact that, so you basically put in, I think what you're talking about is putting an indentation in, kind of further in the garage. Yep. So that's something that we did do on our plans that are being built right now. It still doesn't really address the aesthetics that I'm talking about, and it's still an inconvenience in the fact that, it's farther to get to the trash bins to bring them out. You got to pull your car out to do that, and it's still not enough room on the other side as well. So it still affects the functionality. I literally just walked our first house today, and that was the first thing I noticed. How are you going to open up a door? It's harder to do it. You certainly can, and that's what we did. But I still think it doesn't meet the aesthetics, and it doesn't meet the functionality. And again, we're a builder. We've done a lot of work, obviously, in the city. We've done a lot of homes in a lot of different cities. We're just trying to bring to you what we think the market certainly wants to see, and what our thoughts are on the aesthetics. So your point is valid. That is exactly what we did. We just feel this would be a better way to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Cooper?
So again, my concern is this would be a blanket statement across the board. So anybody that comes in would be able to abide by just the garage door. So in the instance of you have a 40-foot lot, and you've got your setbacks, you're now looking at what, a 35-foot wide house?
That's a
30-foot
that's a
wide?
great question. Anything really under 50 foot, so 45 foot or 40 foot, that would be a detached garage. It's just that would be amenable to that. I'm talking really about 50-foot wide lots, which you have a lot of.
But that's not how it's stipulated in this language.
And
so-
again, that the language is, it was kind of our attempt to say, this is something that should be put in here. Probably should have been a little more specific in that, and I'm fine doing that. We're just trying to bring it to your attention. So yes, it could be more specific to 50-foot wide lots. When we wrote this, we didn't think of the granularity of that.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussions, comments? All right, seeing none, I think it'd be an appropriate time. This is a public hearing to open public comment on this item. If there's anyone in the audience that would wish to speak on this, in the back.
Good evening. My name is Trish Oliver. I've been a resident since 1986. I do appreciate the representatives from Robertson Brothers' comments that they do comply with the zoning laws and that they know how to work around the problem that they describe. I'd say that the number one concern of Royal Oak homeowners per the master plan surveys is overbuilt homes, living next to overbuilt homes. So while this may seem incremental, it's a very big deal to a lot of people out there. So again, thank you to Robertson Brothers for working with the zoning laws. It means a lot to the existing homeowners. And thank you to the commissioners for your thoughtful questions, pointing out how these problems can be solved. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to this side for discussion. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, maybe I'll kick it off. Totally understand what previous generations were trying to do in the 90s. People that sat up here, zoning sat in city commission to avoid convenience building, where, you know, the character of our neighborhoods are impacted, and I'm sure there were a few examples that popped up, and we see that from time to time. There's always innovation, right? We see a lot of container homes going up today, and it's like, okay, well, can we legislate design, or can we legislate, and I'm not for or against container homes, just for the record, I don't want the container home lobby to come after me and say he's a horrible person, you know, we see these sort of evolutions, innovations happen, and I understand what they were trying to do. I do see some of the issues that were brought by the petitioner. One of the things interesting is, you know, people go to buy a house and they say, oh, 2-car garage, great. They don't actually park their cars in it. And then when they get it, you know, their trash cans are outside. They might keep one car in the street. So now something that was supposed to be a convenience can actually maybe impact the neighborhoods. But at the same time, you know, we are an established community. We've been around for a very long time. And even in the 45-foot lot areas, I mean, houses are selling, you know, pretty quickly, pretty fast, and with detached garages and things that are a little bit more inconvenient than if you lived in South Lyon and bought a brand new home out in the middle of a cornfield. You can get everything you want. We offer a whole different, you know, set of aesthetics and a whole different lifestyle here in Royal Oak. We're very walkable, all of that. So I understand the urgency that you guys may have some properties out there that you're looking to build on, but you know, from us, I'll just say that urgency isn't necessarily our urgency. And while I think it's an interesting thing to explore, I see some of the pros and cons. I do think it might be wise to wait till we have that overall zoning ordinance conversation. I'm pretty conservative on our zoning ordinances. I think it's, if you change them too quickly, too much. There's always unintended consequences. So, I'm hoping through that process, you said comprehensive. Yes, it'll be a comprehensive review, but I don't see a ton of stuff changing. But there might be other gears and other things we're looking at that could impact this or affect this. And I don't know that you want to, I'm going to say it, and it's not even meant to be a joke, patchwork activity to when we're going to have this review here in the next, 12 months? Within the next 12 months? So to me, it's not it's an interesting idea. Like, I get it. But at the same time, we did it for a reason. Former generations put this in for a reason. I'm not so convinced right now that the trade-offs are totally there. And I think if we're going to look at the zoning ordinance, we should maybe not peck at it now. We should do it more comprehensively because, like I said, other things could impact it.
I was around when we did this the first time. So I do remember the issue we had at the time was we were getting a proliferation of homes being built where the garage was in front. So all we saw was garage and the front entry was around the side. And it didn't fit into the character of the neighborhood and it just was not attractive. And so that's what we came up with. How do we divide it to keep the garage here and house there so we can see the house? That's what the base of that is. Now, that was 20-some years ago. Design of homes have changed. We don't see those type of homes anymore. So I don't think it's a problem. And I see what you're trying to say too. I mean, you want to build an attractive home, and if you're going to build a home that's only going to have a 6-inch wide stud on one side, it's not very eye appealing. So is there a way to fix this? I'm guessing there is. Do we have that way tonight? I don't think so. So I think as the mayor suggested, as we get into the process of the zoning ordinance, figure out a way to work this in there, because I think we can do it better, but just not tonight.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, and I'll echo something the mayor said a moment ago. Robertson Homes has been a very good corporate citizen here in Royal Oak. Their development at Normandy Oaks is outstanding and exemplary. And we heard that some of the principals of the firm do live here in Royal Oak. We will, later on the agenda tonight, talk about some of the prospective firms to undertake our comprehensive zoning code rewrite. And all of them have called for, rightly so, a robust public engagement process. And I certainly would look to those residents who live here who work for Robertson Homes to play, not just a participatory role in there, but perhaps a subject matter expert role as we move forward with that. But I do share with the views of Commissioner Ellison and the mayor that this is something that should be looked at not piecemeal, but as part of a comprehensive zoning review.
Mr. Cooper.
So again, just agree with reiterating, I think it's this, trying to piecemeal this in is tough. There's too many different scenarios that are there. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So I think that's one of the bullet points we had to throw on as we start to look through this. And again, I actually interned with Robertson over 30 years ago up in Lake Orion. So I'm familiar with you guys. And if you guys are here, I think it's come participate, grab an oar and join the ship and help out.
Mr. Mayor.
I just think everyone shares the goal in the entire community. I bet that we want beautiful neighborhoods. We want to keep the character of our neighborhoods. We don't want to limit creativity. We want to limit, objectionable outcomes that may not be, whereas there might be trust in Robertson Brothers over the years, over 80 years. You get another person that comes in and does something atrocious. We're back to square one again. So I think there's a way here, there's probably a formula here that our consultant can help us with that says, okay, we can solve the problem. We can keep the problem solved, but we can add more flexibility to permit more aesthetically pleasing designs. Because you're right, the house that you showed, you're getting the 16-foot garage door on the front of the house. You're getting it. Like, you're not preventing that. You're just, now you get it with trash cans and probably an extra car in the street. So it probably needs to be looked at if it's really, even if the ordinance is even meeting its original objectives. So, and I think some of them, we can't say what's aesthetically pleasing and not, but some of the designs look good. you know, some of them, you know, I'm sure not from Robertson Brothers, but other developers would come in and like, oh my God, we did not want that. So we got to be thoughtful about it. But I appreciate, I mean, you guys have been here a long time. You put a piece of clay out there for us to look at and work at, which is a very good thing. So we appreciate that.
Any other comments? All right, I'd like to make a few comments. First, just want to thank the applicant for bringing this forward, and the simple math equation that was put up there, I think, demonstrates the challenge pretty easily. I recently moved to a new home in Royal Oak. The previous home that I was in for 18 years is on a 40-foot wide lot. So I very much understand the design challenge around working with narrow lots. We have a two-car garage as well, but it's a detached garage. And that two-car garage encumbers the rear yard pretty significantly. So it's not lost on me how difficult it is to design modern buildings given these constraints. But I'm not going to rehash all the things that were just stated. I generally concur that with the impending comprehensive ordinance update, I think I'd be much more comfortable with, in light of this issue being brought forward, waiting for this to be addressed in that update. But also want to make the comment that while you've brought it forward for some projects that you have, there's quite a bit of new building going on in town, and it seems that for the most part, while you could make the argument that it's compromised design, it seems that most other builders are being able to, they're working within the ordinance as it exists, as you've stated that you are as well. So I think, as it's been stated, I'm not sure that tonight is the time to deal with this one specific ordinance in this very specific way, but I do appreciate you bringing it forward so that it can be a topic for discussion when we do the comprehensive update. Any other questions or comments? Motion?
Make a motion. I want to make sure that I get this correct, but motion to deny and in concurrence with staff's report as it is written.
Yeah, there's, I think, a resolution language in the packet there. All right, motion from Mr. Cooper based on the resolution language in the staff report. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Douglas. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion is passed.
Thank you. We just want to start the conversation. So
No, that's good.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 5, new business. This is a public hearing on a conditional rezone from general industrial to general business and a site plan review, SP 25-07-10 at 2800 West 14 Mile. Mr. Murphy.
This is a little over 11-acre site located at the intersection of Coolidge and 14 Mile. There's an existing manufacturing building, and the petitioner is proposing a conditional rezoning. The site is currently zoned general industrial. They are asking to have it conditionally rezoned to general business. Kroger is proposing to demolish the existing manufacturing building on site and construct a 100,000 gross square foot retail building that has outdoor display and sales along the front. I'm going to zoom in on the screen so you can get a better, clearer understanding. A little bit of outdoor display and sales, the front entry. They'll also have packaged alcohol sales, and there'll be a drive-through along the side of the building. Adjacent to the drive-through, you see on the site plan 15 designated order pickup parking spaces. So this is for the particular element of their building, which is associated with pickup orders. They have several entrance and exit points. They are proposing to utilize the existing driveway along 14 Mile Road, which is at a existing traffic signal. That would provide access from 14 Mile Road. There is an existing driveway along Coolidge that would be removed, and they're proposing to put in a new entry exit point a little further north than the existing location. And I'm going to go back to the Google Street View image to show you the existing driveway. And that existing driveway is at the intersection of Coolidge and 14 Mile. They're proposing to keep the existing northerly drive approach on Coolidge, and that would provide access to the business property to the north, as well as access to the rear of their building, where they have additional parking and they have 3 loading spaces for the loading dock to bring goods in and out. I will note that the ordinance, based on this size of the building, requires 5 loading spaces. Again, they're proposing fewer. And they are also proposing a fuel station, and that fuel station is located closer to the intersection of Coolidge and 14 Mile Road. The canopied fuel station would have 5 individual fuel pumps. Obviously, they're double-sided. They would be able to provide fuel for 10 vehicles at any given time. They do highlight some outdoor display or sales area adjacent to the small building that's under the canopy, as well as some adjacent to the fuel pumps themselves. The store, its outdoor sales and drive-through, those are all regarded as a special land use in the existing zoning district as a designation, which is general industrial. So they could come in front of you for site plan and special land use approval to build the store. The proposed fuel station, that is neither a permitted nor special land use in the general industrial zoning district. All of the uses that they're proposing are special land uses in the general business zoning district, and that's what they're asking for they're asking to have it conditionally rezoned from general industrial to general business in order to allow all of the uses that they are illustrating in their drawing. The future land use map in the master plan identifies this area as activity center. The prior master plan had a designation of industrial. Again, the current master plan has a future land use designation of activity center. And I want to read the definition of activity center that's provided in the zoning ordinance, in the master plan. So an activity center is characterized by very active multi-block Main Street or significant commercial spaces supported by multifamily housing within the activity center and surrounding corridors. Uses include a full range of commercial, retail, food, beverage, institutions, and offices serving larger segment of the city and surrounding communities. This place type is consists of medium-scale, multi-story attached buildings and occasional large special purpose buildings. Parking is typically handled on-site with structured parking and surface parking lots behind buildings. So if you could boil that down into 2 words, I would say walkable density. The master plan has not yet translated into a revised or new zoning ordinance. Obviously, we talked about that in the last item as well. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're considering the criteria for changing the zoning map. And we'll go through that criteria in a little while. So I'm going to take a little different approach, and I'm going to ask you to first focus on the process type that they're requesting. So while the petitioner has every right to ask for a conditional rezoning request, does it meet the criteria outlined in the ordinance, and is it necessary to accomplish their proposed uses? Secondly, I'd like you to focus on the requested land use in light of the master plan's future land use designation, which we just talked about. And then lastly, I'd like you to consider the site plan and all of its deviations from the current zoning ordinance provisions, and we'll go through those. Those are quite numerous. So this is a public hearing, and they're voluntarily offering conditions associated with their rezoning request, so a public hearing is required. The Planning Commission may approve or deny the request based on the voluntary conditions, And obviously, since it's a request to amend the zoning map, which is part of the zoning ordinance, this would have to be forwarded to the city commission for their consideration. So if you're recommending approval, there's a suggested motion which has a notable component which identifies the request for a traffic study. And when the petitioner comes up to present their site plan and all the elements of it, we can speak with regard to that. But the engineering division has asked for a traffic study. Petitioner has indicated that they're in the process of creating that. It is yet to be provided, but the engineering division does have some concerns over the number of stacking spaces to access the drive along 14 Mile Road. And they also have concern over the traffic volume and patterns at that intersection at 14 and Coolidge. So if you, alternatively, if you're recommending denial, I would ask that you highlight the criteria, the specific criteria with regard to asking for a zoning ordinance amendment and cite the specific reasons why you're denying it based on the criteria. But with that, there are a lot of other site issues, and again, deviations are numerous, but I think it may be wise to listen to the petitioner first, and then that will naturally flow into some of those that we can have a better conversation based on. They don't meet several standards, including design of the building itself, the number of trees, and the excess of parking, the sign variances that they're requesting. And again, keep in mind that they have every right to ask for a conditional rezoning request and all the deviations, but is that the appropriate process for what they're trying to accomplish?
I do have a question that I think is appropriate at this moment. I understand conditional rezonings. If they were just asking for a rezoning, would the steps in the process be the same? That is, do they have to ask for the rezoning and then come to us with special land use and site plan? Or could they still package those activities together?
No, if they were asking for what we'll refer to as a traditional rezoning
Right.
request, that would simply be a request to rezone from, assuming general industrial to general business.
To general, right.
And then whoever owns the property at that point would be able to come to you and ask for site plan special land use approval for any of the dozens and dozens of uses that are allowed in that zoning district. And they would need to comply with all those ordinance requirements or seek variances thereafter.
But it would still be a two-step process. That is, you get the rezoning, you go to the city commission approves it, then you come back with special land use and site plan, or can you do those simultaneously?
They would not be able to do those simultaneously.
Okay.
And that is why arguably the state legislature created this particular avenue for approval process, is to circumvent or to package it all together. And it's to the developer and to the municipality or the local jurisdiction's advantage sometimes to have this process in place, because it says that we're interested in rezoning it, but this is the only thing that you can build, this particular set of drawings.
Got
And
it.
so it gives assurance to the municipality and to the developer of what is agreed upon versus it could be any of the uses if we rezone it to general business.
Right. And from an economic development standpoint, that makes sense. I understand why they would want to approach it that way. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy before we invite the applicant up? Okay, seeing none, I'm assuming the petitioner is here. I'd like to invite them up to present their case.
Good evening. My name is Mike McPherson. I'm with Atwell Civil Engineering Consultant for the project. I have with me folks from Kroger and folks from the property ownership group as well. So if there's specific questions for those folks, they'll be available to answer those later. I appreciate you pulling up. We just have a quick kind of little presentation here just to walk through, give you a better idea of what we're asking. Project team, like you already know, Kroger, again, Atwell Civil, Moody Nolan's the architect. They are not here tonight, but they are listening. Go to the next one. You have project outline. Thank you. So, like as was pointed out, this is industrial building that was constructed in the 1950s, fairly old and obsolete now. It's been vacant for several years. And, with this project, we're asking for the conditional rezone. The reason for the conditional rezone is similar to what Mr. Murphy stated, is that we're trying to, hone in on exactly the development of this site that could be amenable to both Kroger as the applicant and the city, and not have it open to all the uses in the ordinance under the general business. And that is the main reason why we've kind of gone this way, to try to give a little more direction for the site here. The next one, so that's just the project location that has already been gone through. Here's some historic aerials. You can see in the, I think it's 63 there on the left. It's very similar to the current aerial, all kind of developed as industrial for the last 50 plus years. The zoning, as already discussed, we're asking for the general business. You can see that there is kind of the lighter red on the left there is existing general business. Our current site is in the blue, which is the industrial. So, even with rezoning this to the general business, it's going to be fairly consistent and nearby properties that are already general business. We're not necessarily isolating this spot. And additionally, with the new master plan, the activity center, the general business zoning is really more in line than industrial zoning, I think, definitely with that definition. Next slide, Mr. Murphy did talk about access a little bit here. We do have a traffic study in process. We do have some preliminary results of that traffic study. That should be fully complete here within about a week, and we will definitely be providing it to the city so they have time to review it. But along 14 Mile, as was noted, there is an existing signal. That signal is currently turned off just because the building is vacant and there's really no traffic going in and out. Obviously, we would be turning the signal back on, making sure it functions appropriately. There is a left turn queue already available on 14 Mile into the site. Per the preliminary results of the traffic study, that queue is adequate for operations. Just a couple of things that the traffic study looks like it's going to recommend are just some tapers or decel right turn lanes along 14 Mile and along Coolidge, which we would have no issue implementing if that is the recommendation, to make sure the traffic operates appropriately. Next one, landscaping. You can see the existing site is and has been almost fully paved out. And honestly, we're trying to introduce as much landscaping and green space as we can, while maintaining the functionality of the site with the Kroger there. We do understand that there's some comments and potentially some deficiencies there, so we are willing to work on adding some more green space and some more landscaping, and work with staff to try to enhance that a little bit more, to get to a point where we're in line with the ordinance. Elevations, again, as Mr. Murphy pointed out, there was a bunch of comments and potential deviations on the elevations here. Like I say, the architect is listening to the meeting tonight, and we will be following up with them as we go forward here. But we're definitely open to trying to enhance the building, to a certain extent. Definitely would like to hear maybe your thoughts tonight on some ideas that we can take back and look at implementing as best we can on that front. Amenities like this will be a brand new Kroger store, a little unlike the one that's up the road a little ways, a mile or so in Troy, I think. You guys are probably all familiar with Kroger, but it would have all full range of amenities. As was pointed out, it'd have a drive-through pharmacy. It would have the separate isolated pickup, which is a very heavily used benefit or amenity that Kroger offers. And then, yeah, I mean, takeaways, obviously this site's been developed for over 50 years as industrial, right? It's currently vacant. It's, you know, in an underused condition. You know, this would definitely, I think, be a catalyst for your new master planned activity area as kind of a hub of commercial that hopefully, you know, continues to build north and east there as you know, some of that older industrial also gets redeveloped. I think this would definitely be a good start to that, and it's kind of in line with that vision. Yeah, and you know, with that, I think Mr. Murphy went through a lot of the the issues real quick. We're definitely willing to work with the city to iron out you know, some of the site plan items, and you know, welcome your feedback tonight so that we can try to get to a point where we have an amenable project for everybody. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Bring it back to this side. Mr. Olson.
I'm not done with you yet. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be snotty. I've looked on it, and maybe I've missed it. What are we doing with the water, the drainage? Do we have a system in there? Do we have an existing system, or are we putting detention ponds?
Our initial plan would be to put underground detention in, just because there's really not much room on this site to do traditional detention. It would be in the parking lot in the front.
Yeah, no, I see it now. I'm sorry, I missed it.
You know, and obviously we would design it to all city and county criteria.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, there is currently a Kroger store to the north. Why move and why here? Can you give us a little bit of the insight into that?
Yeah, I don't know, Zach, if you want to talk to that a little bit, but I know that the store to the north is I think about 50,000 square feet, so it's like half the size of this store. There's no opportunity to expand that store to offer all the additional services and amenities that Kroger likes to offer in their stores. That is a store that's patronized very well, and this would put us relatively close to that store with the additional amenities to try to, you know, offer those to the folks that live in this area.
So if I had to summarize, it's, hey, we have a good thing going right now, but it's 50,000 square feet. Moving it to this location at 100,000 square feet, we can still service the same customer base, but with more amenities.
Correct.
Okay. Then the next question I have is sustainability features. Can you talk about, you're asking for a lot here, and I know Atwell's work, you guys do amazing work. I think one of the best consulting engineering firms out there. As far as your client is desire here, what sort of features can we point to? And in Royal Oak, we have a community benefits resolution that says, hey, if you're asking for a bunch of stuff, you know, outside of the general always economic argument, like, oh, you get taxes and all these things, okay, fine. Can you point to how, from a sustainability point of view, some of the key features this property is delivering on?
Yeah, you know, obviously this property as developed right now is, like I say, almost all impervious, right? So there's not much from a stormwater standpoint. There's no detention. There's no water quality treatment, any of that type of stuff. So obviously we would implement that to all the current code, understanding that there's going to be, you know, a lot of it will be underground and mechanical pretreatment, things like that. That's not real visual, but would definitely make an impact on all the stormwater before it's discharged off the site. Regarding the store, I know Kroger can probably speak to this a little bit more in depth than I can, but the store itself implements a lot of sustainable type design items, down to like things like, the lights will shut off in the coolers, and if there's no motion, they use different types of HVAC systems to be more economical. There's a bunch of different things with the building. We can provide you probably some more literature on that when I can talk to the architect. But I think that we can definitely come up with some sustainable features that would we could highlight that'd be in line with the city's kind of vision there.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, thank you. So in a conditional rezoning, you can ask for whatever you want, right? And you have asked for much here that is not consistent with our current zoning ordinance. And that's fine, but you had an opportunity here to comply more fully with our zoning ordinance to make this project perhaps a little more palatable. Little things like, excessive parking and inexcessive or insufficient trees, for example, and landscaping. And you might have had an opportunity to balance those out to meet our zoning codes. Similarly, setbacks. There's a huge site, it's a blank slate for you, you can do whatever you want. It seems like you could have gone from an 8-foot setback to a 10-foot setback, and even if that sacrifices parking, we've already acknowledged that you exceed our limits on parking. So I'm just curious why that would be that way.
Yeah. So I guess a couple things. The parking, when I look at it from Kroger's standpoint, is actually fairly tight. So we're trying to get as much parking as we can. I know we went back and forth with staff a little bit on the definition of usable floor area, which defines the maximum amount of parking that you can have. I guess what I would say is like I mentioned earlier, we're definitely willing to, make some modifications to try to whittle down that list of waivers, deviations that is being requested to try to more comply with what would be the underlying zoning requirements, the parking, the number of trees. There's things like the crosswalks. We don't necessarily have an issue with making them stamped concrete, right? So our goal would be to definitely whittle down that list of deviations significantly, to try to make it more palatable, as you say, for sure.
So, and here is your dilemma. The conditional rezoning process is a benefit to developers, as we discussed earlier, because it does let you kind of package everything together. But on our side of the table, a conditional rezoning is not negotiable. You've brought us an offer, and we can only consider the offer that you've brought us and vote it up or down. There's very little wiggle room in terms of going back to staff and renegotiating any portions of this. So I think that's the decision that's going to come back to us at the table is you've brought us a single thing that we either approve or disapprove. And that's for further discussion by my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. Mr. Cooper?
Just to kind of parlay on that, so I don't think the purpose of us is to do a design charrette here to work through a full plan as to what we can do that's palatable for everybody. I think we've got a list of things that are not compliant. Is that something that you just say you've got your marching orders, go see what's palatable, what's not, and we'll talk about that. We can do this, we can't do this, and this is why. At least that's my interpretation. If there's others that feel different, let me know.
I'm sorry, flesh that out a little more.
So we have a list of criteria that we're asking for deviations on, or things that we don't meet, landscaping, signage, you name it. That's very clearly outlined. I think that's something that the petition needs to look at on their own and say, these are things that we can comply with or we can't, and this is why. And that's for us to decide upon. It's not a design charrette for us to kind of walk through these items and kind of coach through the process and collectively design the space.
Right. I see. Thank you. Thanks.
So I'll just make a few comments. I agree with that. I think the challenge that we have, and Commissioner Douglas used the right word, we are not in a position where this is a negotiation here. What's been presented to us is what we have to look at. I will speak very frankly in that I'm a little bit shocked and surprised and perhaps disappointed by the number of deviations and the types of deviations that have been presented, highlighting a few examples, being overparked but not having enough green space. That's a situation that could have been very easily resolved prior to coming before us today. What's been presented to us presents a lot of challenges, and as Commissioner Douglas pointed out, we're very limited in our purview and how we take a look at this. So I guess further discussion will sort of figure out what we're going to do here, but those are some of my initial comments. Actually, one more quick thing. I appreciate the mayor asking about the sustainability features, because that's typically my question.
Beat you to it.
Yeah, beat me to it. But I will say that, I think the response to it was wholly insufficient in terms of what is being presented. I do agree that any more pervious surface that we get that exists over what is there today is certainly a benefit. However, what you identified was sort of minimally required standards as something that you're offering as a benefit from sustainability perspective. So I appreciate the question. I did not necessarily think that the response was adequate. So I'll just leave that at that. Any other comments? Sure. Yeah, thank you. So we do not have a full body tonight. We do have a quorum. I just want to give you the option to move forward with this. It's your option to move forward or to postpone. I guess before we move to public comment, is this something you'd like to continue with tonight, or would you like it to postpone?
Well, after receiving the memo and list of deviations, we understand that there's quite a list there, and we are willing to come back with a revised plan that offers to lessen those number of deviations. So I think that we were fully expecting to likely be tabled or postponed tonight, also so we can provide the traffic study and get a full review from city engineer on that end as well. So I think that our expectation was likely a postponement.
Okay. I guess I want to make sure that I'm clearly understanding you. Are you leaving it up to us to decide if we postpone? Are you requesting a postponement? What is your choice to move forward tonight and move forward in this process tonight, or are you requesting any other action from us? Okay. So I guess knowing the discussion, if you want to sort of chew on that for a minute, we can go ahead and open public comment. Okay. Once we've concluded the public comment, I would say give us your answer then.
Sure. Okay. Right. Appreciate that.
Thank you. So with that, I'd like to open the public comment on this item right here in the front.
It is a public hearing, right?
Yes.
No, so it is a hearing. It's different.
Oh. Well, it is a public hearing, so we'll want public comment.
My name is Trish Oliver, and I've lived in Royal Oak since 1986. Time and again, you on the dais have proven that you're not interested in residents' input, so why are we even here for these meetings? For example, August 2023, Greenfield and 13-mile PUD zoned for 3 units, approved for 10, no affordable housing, 5 100-year-old trees cut down. 4704 Rochester Road zoned for 16 units, approved for 42, 4 100-year-old trees cut down, after the developer said he wouldn't cut them down. Exterior stairs, 3.5 stories, no elevator. 600 East 11 miles zoned for 3 units, approved for 22. 503 South Troy zoned for 3 units, approved for 27. 505 South Lafayette, 10 stories, 100% of the parking waived, that's 81 spots, or upwards of $2 million to the developer. He won't have to lose rental space to put in parking spaces, Tough luck to seniors and people with ADA needs. Prairie and 13 Mile rezone from neighborhood business to put multi-stories next to single-family homes. 723 North Main zone for 2 units approved for 24. Single-family designation removed from the future land use map and future land use categories in the master plan. Sheets approved at one of Royal Oak's busiest and most dangerous intersections, despite it being very close to Upton School, which receives Title I support, meaning that at least 40% of Upton students have financial need, many of whom live in apartment rentals. Despite that, you've burdened this hardworking community with additional traffic, congestion, and safety concerns to their streets. You claim to be concerned with affordable housing, but when residents such as the Upton neighborhood who live in relatively affordable homes speak in opposition to a project, you don't listen to them. The evidence is mounting that you ignore the hundreds of people who come to these city meetings. A handful of people come in to support a proposal and hundreds oppose it, and you go with the handful. There's full expectation that you'll ignore the citizens again tonight. You've ignored them every time. Now we are at Kroger, just east of Sheets on 14 Mile Road. However, if you deny it, you'll look good to Sheets and maybe your supporter, Oakland County Commission Chair and paid Sheets consultant Dave Woodward. Is that why we got a Sheets in Royal Oak, despite other communities turning it down? Now you'll approve this Kroger. The citizens of Royal Oak can conclude that you'll approve this Kroger despite anything they have to say about it. Thank you.
I would like to remind everyone to not clap or outwardly gesture for any of the public comment to make it fair to everyone. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Right here.
Good evening. My name is Richard Rassel, and I'm an attorney at Williams, Ratner, and Plunkett in Birmingham, Michigan. And I represent the property owner to the immediate east of the proposed development on 14 Mile. That's Vogue Furniture. The entity that owns the property is named Jonathan Clay Properties LLC, and the entity and Vogue Furniture owned by Greg Bartelt. Greg Bartelt and his family have owned Vogue Furniture, which is a custom high-end furniture manufacturer, since 1998. They were not contacted in connection with this project. They did receive notice from the city pursuant to the statute, and as of Wednesday of last week, we were asked to come in and consult on the impact of the proposed project on the ingress-egress easement that separates the Vogue Furniture store from the proposed Kroger development. We are not opposed to Kroger at this site. We are not opposed to the redevelopment of this site, which has been in need of redevelopment probably for a couple of decades. We welcome the redevelopment, but just to my further point, we were not contacted in connection with this development. There's an ingress-egress easement that runs between the two properties that is 30 feet wide. Kroger, clearly pursuant to the site plan that it's presenting this evening, intends to take advantage of that ingress-egress easement. That ingress-egress easement has restrictions against overburdening, and it has underground sewer and stormwater aspects that require investigation. Since we were just notified of this project and have not had a chance to conduct title work with regard to the scope of the ingress-egress, and our concern is an overburdening of that area, and in studying the staff memo, it's obvious to us that this request to you this evening is premature without the traffic study. The traffic study focuses on the ingress-egress easement as being a point of access to this project, but the developer acknowledges that the traffic study is not complete tonight. We concur with staff in the staff memo that the ingress-egress easement is a critical feature for you to be studying along with the traffic study in consideration of this project. Again, we're not opposed to the project. We'd like to be consulted. We'd like to be in the conversation with regard to the impact on this project that we've had for 27 years next door and is an asset to the city. And so we're asking that this be tabled this evening and that Kroger contact us, or the developer or the property owner, so we can sit down and have a meaningful conversation before the next time that you meet to consider this project regarding the impact on our property. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak on this topic? Mr. Harrison.
Thank you. Bill Harrison, resident since 1941. My residence is in the Woodward Side subdivision, just off of Woodward Avenue. Like the Sheets project, it's not the use that's a concern to me, it's the traffic. And I'm hearing that they're going to come forward with a traffic study, and I believe that the traffic study should also include the impact of Sheets, because that's what's going to happen once Sheets is established. I think that the person doing or the firm doing the traffic study should also include mitigating I'm having a Biden moment, excuse me. Give them some other opportunities of access to the site, specifically along Coolidge. The new driveway seems it's awfully close to 14 Mile Road, and there may be a stacking problem there. They have a community or a common driveway north of there that they're still going to be using, and I think that might be adequate. As far as the use is concerned, I don't agree with the use proposed in the master plan. Sounds like a 15-minute city to me. And of course, we know the 15-minute city is a socialist communist concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak on this? Right here in the middle.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Horman. I live at 914 Genesee Drive. I moved to Royal Oak in 1978. I want to read a very brief statement from Nancy Proposki, who was unable to attend tonight. The statement, like Nancy, is short and to the point. No to Kroger, especially if a gas station is part of the plan that will further contaminate Royal Oak, otherwise known as density. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? All right, seeing no hands, I'm going to go ahead and, right here up in front.
I'm actually the developer of this site. I didn't know if I could speak now or afterwards. I just want to close the public's.
You'll have an opportunity to speak later.
No problem.
Yep. Any other folks in public wish to speak? Okay, seeing no hands, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to this side for a discussion. I think at this time we'll actually bring the petitioner back up to see if you'd like us to continue to move forward on the agenda topic tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Hearing all the concerns and comments, we'd like to be postponed tonight and have an opportunity to maybe make some revisions and then put forth a revised plan for you guys.
Okay. So would that be a postpone or a table?
It would be a motion to postpone to a definite time. You can make that definite time be the next meeting, and then they can administratively come back and ask for an additional time if they'd like that.
Okay. I don't think your mic was on. I'm not sure if everyone heard that. So the question at hand would, and the request would be to postpone to a date certain and a definite time, which could be our choosing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. At which point, at that, the date of our choosing, the petitioner could come back, and if they needed more time beyond that, could administratively request that for the future agendas. Mr. Ellison.
Yeah, a question, if we postpone this meeting, what do we do with the public hearing? This was a posted public hearing. Should we keep the public hearing open to the next meeting?
That's correct, it all gets postponed.
It all gets postponed, so we don't close the public hearing tonight. It remains open until the next meeting, just so long as we're aware of that.
Correct.
Okay.
But I'll note that there won't be any additional public notice provided since we did that for tonight's meeting. So individuals within 300 feet won't receive another public notification postcard, and it won't be posted in the local
They
newspaper.
will or they won't?
They will not.
They will not, yeah, that's going. This is the public hearing posted for tonight, but we're continuing the discussion to the next meeting.
Correct.
So I have an additional question then. It's the petitioner's request that we postpone. Is it this body's choice as to whether we do that or
There would
or
have to
not?
be a motion from this side of the table to postpone it.
Or we could continue to move forward?
Correct.
I think Mr. Ellison had his hand up first.
Like any project of this size, we're not going to do this in one meeting. I mean, we've got to have, there's a lot of issues out there. We need to talk with the developer. Developer needs to talk to some of his neighbors. There's a whole lot of discussion to go on with this. So, I mean, we've got a good start tonight. We've looked at it. We've discussed it. We've heard from the public. And so we're not ready to make a decision on this tonight. And I think it would behoove us to postpone this. So I'm going to move that we keep the public hearing open, postpone it to a date. Do we have a date set future?
I think
We would need to determine that.
next week, or I'm sorry, next month,
Next
or
meeting?
indefinite if administrative. if
Well,
they
my
need more
suggestion,
time.
my suggestion would be postpone it to the next regular scheduled planning commission meeting.
That would be fine.
Is that your motion?
Okay, that's my motion.
Okay. Is there a question?
Yeah, a question on the motion, real quick. Is that okay to ask a question right now? Does that mean that if it, that staff can push it out further if the petitioner requests that they need more time, that it doesn't have to keep coming back up here?
Yeah, the intent of my motion is to set a date so that we know we have a target future. Now, developer can't make that date, they can request to push it ahead. We just keep it open and moving it forward. Like I say, it's a big project, it's gonna take a lot of discussion, and we don't wanna rush anybody into anything on this one. So we set it out for another month, give you an opportunity to do your homework, we can look at it some more, discuss amongst ourselves. But if you're not ready, then you just call and say, this happens all the time. We get calls from developers and saying, you know, I need to push it forward a month.
And staff can make that call.
Well, staff can make that. Well, if they're not, I mean, if they're not ready, if the staff's not ready, if we're not ready, I mean, it's doesn't mean, just because I said it for the next meeting, doesn't mean that we have to make a decision that night.
Okay.
It's like, we're just scheduling the meeting.
So that would be the August 12th meeting.
So the motion is to postpone action this evening, keep the public hearing open, and postpone the action until the next scheduled planning commission meeting, which is August 12th.
Yeah. And that has not been seconded yet, I don't think.
That stated correctly?
Huh?
Did I state your motion?
Yeah, the motion's correct, but it has not been supported yet. So.
No, yeah, I just want to make sure I clearly stated it. Is there support for this motion?
I'll support.
All right, there's a second from Mr. Cooper. Any discussion on the motion?
Before you vote, I know that the property owner wished to come up and speak under public comment, and we gave him, stated that we'd give him the opportunity to speak. I think it'd be appropriate to ask him if he would still like to speak.
I would agree, and thank you for reminding me of that. So before we vote on the motion, I would like to invite the developer up to speak.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Frank Jarbo, Symmetry Management, with the developers on the site, owners, developers. My firm, Symmetry Management, and my GC arm that we've been in the business in the city of Royal Oak, Greenwich Construction Group, for over 30 years. We love the city. We've built a tremendous amount of product for other developers in this market and been here for a while. I think one thing that we did miss with the conditional zoning is even though that we don't want to go through every single line item, there is suggestions that we could have gotten from the planning commission, that stuff that you wanted to see on the planning, so we could go back and be better informed on what we could possibly do to make this plan better. I can tell you that also too is our property manager has reached out to Vogue. Whether it been a miscommunication, I do apologize. I'm more than happy to have that conversation with our neighbor. I think we've even reached out personally to see where they are with their mindset and whatever it may be. We want to be good neighbors. We want to see this development happen. But We purchased this building about 3 years ago, as some people around town know, and we're speculative buyers at the end of the day. So we've had numerous industrial uses come to us, and the first use that came to us was Kroger. We have a relationship with them. We have done other deals with them. So we figured this is probably the better venture to redevelop this. So just wanted to air all of that out there, but we agree that we do have some work to do, and we'll come back with a better plan. But I'm here to answer any questions, any concerns.
Are there any questions for the developer? No? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's been a motion, there's been a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I'll make my views clear on this. We just recently approved a master plan that calls for a significant reimagining of this space, not just this space, but the area around it. And it's a reimagining that I think is consistent with market trends and demand trends and popular interests. And if we approve this development on this site, we are foreclosing anything else on this prime piece of real estate. And what we are putting there is a sea of parking on 14 Mile and a blank wall on Coolidge. And even if they dress that wall up a little bit, it's still going to be a big blank grocery store wall. So I'm going to vote against this motion to table, just to spare them the agony of my future decisions if I have an opportunity to weigh in on them.
Any other comments, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'll add that, looking at this for the first time, I was a little bit underwhelmed in terms of what we had envisioned for this area of the city. I think that for me, I'm going to be supporting the postponement of this because I think that a little bit more creativity that aligns with the community benefits that we've articulated, and you get a copy of that from our staff if you need to. But I think for me, this has to be not a, cookie cutter Kroger, and I'm not saying it's cookie cutter, but it's 4 square walls and it's 100,000 square feet in a parking lot and a fuel station. I think when we talk about reimagining this corner and it being potentially an anchor for redevelopment in the area, I think that it has to be a project that is uncompromising at every level. So when we talk about sustainability features, when we talk about walkability, when we talk about integration into the neighborhoods, and we talk about green space and trees and what it looks like on 14, we talk about traffic. Actually, at first I thought, well, this is really not a traffic addition, it's a traffic shift, because you would be moving from Kroger, would be moving from its current location a little bit farther south. But with the additional parking and the going from 50 to 100,000 square foot, it would be an additional attraction. And I think that that parking study or that traffic study is going to be really important to look at as well. So I think those are all the things. I mean, I want to give the developer and the engineering team the opportunity to go back and get really creative, but the bar is going to be really high on this one. It would have to be a flagship type situation that meets our master plan vision for that area. We just passed our master plan. 10,000 people in the city of Royal Oak had their say in the master plan. So we have to make sure that what we're doing aligns with that, and that if there are any trade-offs, that those trade-offs can be articulated through community benefits. And so I don't want to say no out of the gate. What I want to say is, okay, if you can sharpen your pencils and think of something really creative and make a flagship store here that accommodates our concerns, it's a high bar, but I don't want to take away that opportunity tonight. So very curious to see what you guys come back with.
Any other comments, Mr.
Yeah, just one quick comment. My motion is simply to allow us more time. Okay, it's premature to vote yes, it's premature to vote no, but it's not premature to say let's wait and get some more information. Again, showing my age, I was around the last time we went through Kroger when the Kroger wanted to come on Main Street. That was a long process. It was a lot of meetings, it was a lot of negotiations, and it ended up not being favorable for Kroger, but they ended up somewhere else, so it all worked out. But, you know, it was a time of discussion, negotiation, and dealing, and that's what I'm looking for, time. You know, we may be ready next month, we may not be, I doubt it, but I think we've got too many issues here to just give, I want to give the developer hope that we're still open for it. I don't want to give them discouragement that we're not going to vote for it. So that's all I want to do is give us time to discuss it, and I think we need it. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'm going to make a few comments. I disagree with Mr. Ellison in one respect, that the chosen path by the development team does not necessarily allow for the time. Commissioner Douglas stated this is not a negotiation. By all accounts, this is a very professional, very well-experienced ownership and development team. The community benefits guidelines that the mayor referred to exists. It's out there. It's a known thing. The priorities of this city are very well known. Our zoning ordinance exists and is well known. The fact that this team chose to bring this project with all of these deviations forward with the conditional rezoning request were all decisions by that development team. And to me, that's very disappointing that what was brought forward to us was not more well developed. And the path that was chosen does not afford us the ability to necessarily have those discussions and have those negotiations per se. So I tend to agree with Commissioner Douglas in the sense that I'm going to be voting against this motion only from the standpoint of it's a conditional rezoning request where all of the knowns and the variables were known, and a better attempt should have come to us to begin with, in my opinion. Mr. Ellison.
I had a question for the attorney. We have a quorum tonight at 5. Microphone. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. We have a quorum of 5. So in making any kind of decision, is it based on simple majority? So if we only have 3 people supporting this motion, it's still going to pass?
That's correct. Simple
Okay.
majority on the motion that's in front of you.
Okay, and I would disagree a little bit with what Woody said. This is conditional zoning, so we do have some latitude. That's where my thought of getting in and working with it, even though it's not like it's PUD or something like that, but there is conditional zoning. We can put conditions on this. And am I wrong? Isn't it?
They have to offer the conditions.
They have to offer the conditions. Okay, so even if our discussions, they can come up and offer conditions to try to meet our satisfaction. I mean, it gives us, again, it's just open opportunity to discuss ideas. And if we don't give them that opportunity, we're never going to see it. So,
Any other comments? Okay, with that, I think it's appropriate to take a roll call vote. So again, the motion is to postpone action to the next Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
no.
Yes.
Mr. Ellison?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor? And I'm a no. So I believe that is 3-2, and the motion passes. And this item is postponed till the next meeting. Great, all right. Thank you. Sure. We'll give it a second for the room to clear. All right, so we'll move on with the agenda. Next item is 5B, public hearing on a special land use and site plan, SP 25-07-11 at 1821 North Campbell Road. Mr. Murphy.
This site's located on Campbell Road, just north of 12 Mile. It currently has a pharmacy, and the petitioner is seeking approval to add an additional business component, which is a dine-in restaurant, a coffee house more specifically, that has a drive-through facility. In this particular zoning district, drive-through facilities are a special land use, so the petitioner is seeking site plan and special land use approval from you this evening. They're looking to reestablish a drive-through window that was once associated with a prior tenant, which was a financial institution many years ago. And I want to first start off by looking at the site plan and pointing out one terribly unique aspect to it. The thicker dashed line that you see on the screen of the site plan illustrates the property line, and we'll say everything is contained within the property line itself except for the portions of the parking spaces that are adjacent to Red Run Road. You'll see that those parking spaces extend north of the property line into the city's public right-of-way. And the petitioner does have a license agreement from the city commission in order to have those parking spaces within the city's public right-of-way. You'll see that the sidewalk does a little jog in order to accommodate space for those parking spaces while still providing a public sidewalk. I'm going to jump to the report, which shows a graphic of their site plan, and it focuses specifically on those angled parking spaces. The red outline of the parking spaces shows the minimum dimensions needed in order to meet our ordinance requirements. And you'll see that there is a drive entrance off of Campbell Road, and it leads to a one-way drive aisle where those parking spaces, those angled parking spaces, are accessed. That drive aisle needs to be no less than 12 feet in width. And I'm going to zoom in on the sketch that the staff has created, and it shows that the distance from the bollards, which are adjacent to the vestibule, to the nearest point of a parking space, that distance is only 7 feet 10 inches, so it's far less than the minimum required width of 12 feet. The petitioner is proposing to add some parking spaces adjacent to the building. Those spaces are accessed at a 90-degree angle, and spaces that are accessed at a 90-degree angle need the equivalent depth, 20 feet, in order to back out and meet the ordinance requirements. So the petitioner is only able to provide 19 feet 2 inches from the end of those 90-degree parking spaces to the nearest angled parking space. The ordinance does require a minimum of 8 stacking spaces for a drive-through facility, and the petitioner has provided those. They're clearly illustrated on the site plan as a series of cars that then lead back to that drive aisle that's accessed off of Campbell Road. That 8th drive-through stacking space, if they meet the ordinance requirement for providing 8, it blocks access to parking spaces denoted as 11 and 12. We'll also note they're adding additional parking spaces shown as 16, 17, and 18. Those are parallel parking spaces, and the ordinance requires that those spaces be longer in depth. They need to be no less than 25 feet in depth compared to a standard parking space, which is 20 feet in depth. And obviously that is for the maneuverability of someone being able to wiggle in and out of getting into those parallel parking spaces. So those spaces do not meet the size requirement, and parking space number 18 blocks access to the dumpster, the required refuse or dumpster enclosure. We'll circle back to the fact that a one-way drive aisle needs to be no less than 12 feet in width. And we have a requirement for drive-through facilities. They must have an adjacent escape lane. So someone that parked and went inside gets back in their car and they exit, or they're no longer interested in service, they should be able to get out of the stacking space lane and enter into the escape lane to then exit out back onto Campbell. At its narrowest point, that distance that's provided for the escape lane is far less than the required 12 feet. It is actually at only 8 feet 9 inches. The drive approach along the side street Red Run, it measures in excess of the maximum 30 feet in width, and we'll note that the existing drive approach on entrance on Campbell Road is in very close proximity to the adjacent side street. So the petitioner is adding another use. The use of a restaurant requires a greater amount of parking compared to a pharmacy. And so the element of the pharmacy plus the additional seating for the coffee establishment, the restaurant, those two together require 20 parking spaces, and the site plan is only able to accommodate 17. So I noted many of the items that would necessitate variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals, but because this is a special land use, you have to first grant site plan approval and special land use approval in order for the petitioner to then approach the Zoning Board of Appeals for all the necessary variances. So this is a public hearing tonight, so it's appropriate to have a conversation with the petitioner and then hear comments from the public.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Is there any questions? All right. With that, I will. Okay, thank you. I'm assuming you're with the applicant. Please introduce yourself. And,
My name is Stephen Kwasnick. I'm the architect, and I'm representing Wes's Coffee Lounge.
Yeah, my name is Wes Youssef. I'm the petitioner.
And this is an existing site. It has some very unique characteristics and conditions. The parking, the driveway, the accessibility aisles were all existing. As for the previous tenant prior to that, the building was used as a medical office, chiropractor building. Prior to that, it was a bank. In 1986, it was a bank, it was National Bank of Royal Oak. It had a drive-through, had 2 drive-through lines in it. I don't know how they would get out. If 2 cars are stacked in the drive-through, then anybody getting out of the bank would just have to wait then, I guess. And then in 2006, it was converted over to a medical office. So currently now it is a pharmacy business. The pharmacy business operation that he does, it's all delivery pharmacy. We don't have any public customers. You don't walk into the pharmacy. So it's all done. He has contracts with nursing homes and medical care facilities that he does his prescriptions to and delivers. So we don't have a customer traffic component here.
Closed door.
Yeah.
It's called a closed door.
It's a closed door pharmacy is what it is. So what we're looking to do here is keep the existing site as it was previous, and previous before that as the bank site, and then introduce the coffee shop component, and with a drive-through window opening, we'll just kind of reinstitute the drive-through window opening as they had way back when. The existing parking, as noted, over the property line, that was in a parking agreement along the north, will remain as is. It's an existing non-conforming issue that we want to keep. We have the drive-through and the drive-through stacking lane. 8 is required by the ordinance, but we feel 7 in a coffee. It's not a fast food. It's not a restaurant. It's a coffee shop. So the turnaround time is much quicker than you would have in a coffee shop than you would have in a regular restaurant, whether it be Burger King, McDonald's, or a Coney Island. So we feel that we could live with a 7-stack situation. The city ordinance has a drive-through aisle width of 12 feet. I'm an architect, and I've done in a lot of other cities. Most of the cities are a 10-foot drive aisle width. So yours is a little more wider than other municipalities, such as like Southfield, for an example. But once again, like I said, being the previous bank, it's the same condition that we had previously where the bank operated in. There's also a note from the planning department that there is a recorded easement that is on the southwest corner of the property. in the one parcel. I noted it on the updated site plan that I gave you. The updated site plan I gave you, I kind of addressed the planning department's comment. So we did adjust the parking along that west side to only go 2 compliant spaces at 9 by 25 and gave adequate space in front of the dumpster area. And then we also noted the easement in that corner. It's a recorded easement. The owner said he's not even, doesn't really have any use for it. So, and I'm not sure, we're just going to leave it as is and let the city determine what they want to do with the easement. The screen wall on the north or on the west side of the property is in really bad shape. It's actually fallen over due to the overgrowth on the adjacent neighbor's property. So the wall's leaning over. We have to totally rebuild that wall. Let's see where you can see where that wall is at. Can you see where that's at? It's at the back of the property. There it is, yeah, back there. So we're going to have to construct that wall. And here again, it doesn't look like it has a whole lot of reinforcing in it. So we're going to do a new masonry wall with reinforcing up to the current standards. And then on landscaping wise, we're going to trim the landscape along the north side, along the Red Run. And then we're going to look to add planting where planting has died. And then along where the corner is, there's some overgrown vegetation there. We're going to come back with some low planting to allow that corner visibility, because it's a little tough to see. If a car comes up Red Run up to the corner of North Campbell, the vegetation's a little too overgrown there. So we're going to take care of that. So exterior lighting, we did talk to DTE. The owner's in process of having DTE remove the old Cobra head light fixture back from the 60s or 70s, and we're going to get installed a new LED shielded fixture, bring it down to the 15-foot in compliance with the ordinance. So that's what we're looking to do, and if there's any questions, we can answer them. Well, and then, go ahead. Then we also, the owner here, the applicant, contacted the gas station owner next door, who owns the property all the way to up to all the way up to 12 Mile. He is given permission and written permission that I handed to you that says that he will let 3 spaces for the employees. He'll have 3 spaces available for the employees to park. Any other questions? Any questions?
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to this side of the table for discussion. Are there questions for the applicant? Commissioner Douglas.
What do you know about the building immediately to your south?
Oh, that's going to be knocked down. It's owned by the gas station, and he's knocking it down completely.
That's what we're told.
That's what he told me. His name is Nick.
Yeah,
the owner.
because there's like no parking for it. I mean, for any use there.
Yeah, he's not. He purchased this to expand his
fuel station.
like the use of his gas station.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions for petitioner? Mr. Cooper?
Just looking at site plan, and again, the comment with regards to the existing easement that was there, I'm wondering if when the bank was in operation, that was your escape plan for not having the drive-through lane to allow 2 lanes of traffic. So if you had to get out, that was your access to Campbell or to 12 Mile via that easement. Is that, I mean, without having that language of knowing what that is, but would that allow to alleviate the problem that we have right now? Because, driving that site, you've got, 7 feet now between to try to get cars in. You're going to scrape mirrors on either side. That's my question. I don't know if you have a record of that, any more information, or if the planning
You can
department.
see it on the site. I mean, if you looked at the site, there is an island in the center. You can see where the island was. You can see where the bollards were and where the machine was, the ATM, or I should say the drive-through machine was. And it's literally, the 2 lanes were 8 feet, and like a 4 or 5 foot island in the middle. That's basically what it was. And that's it.
Okay.
It's the only thing I can think of is emptying on Red Run was probably to alleviate somebody coming down out of the bank, and then they have to exit Red Run as opposed to going around the drive-through. That probably was drive-through only, and they force everybody onto Red Run out of the bank parking, and around the building was only for drive-through.
Okay.
I'm a little confused by the easement, to be quite honest, and maybe I misunderstood or you misspoke. You mentioned there's an easement that exists in the southwest corner of the site?
Yes. There's a 10-foot vehicle access easement, according to the planning department.
That runs east-west?
That runs north-south.
I'll point to it on the aerial photograph.
Yeah.
It's right where we're putting the dumpster enclosure.
So Commissioner Douglas had inquired about this particular building directly south of them. It's a separate piece of property, and it's a very narrow, runs the entire length, as you can see. The petitioner's property has a recorded easement agreement that extends from the drive approach off of Red Run down to this petitioner, the property to the south, so that they have access to get to their property. Otherwise, they're completely landlocked. So I can do a quick Google Street View image, but there's a difference in elevation between the petitioner's property and the subject property, as well as from the filling station directly south of it. I think this was
It's about an 18-inch drop in grade.
Yes.
So I don't know, that was a tough road. I don't know how they got in there from there. Because you're literally coming down and just dropping 18 inches.
So this is where the indicated easement is, yes. And there's also overhead utilities there as well.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
So that presents the overhead utilities will cause whoever comes to pick up the refuse in this proposed enclosure to pull it out, certainly back up enough into the open space where they have enough room to lift it above so that they don't hit the overhead power lines and put it back down and wiggle it back into this area right here.
Well, the utility pole I show the utility pole on the plan, so it's outside. Yeah, so there, the line goes from there to the back of the building. So if he pulls straight in, and they should do it in the morning, that space in front of the dumpsters will be available for the truck to come in, pull out the dumpster, and he's going to have only a small dumpster. It's like a 2-yarder is all he needs.
Commissioner Douglas?
I think this is for Mr. Murphy. So, looking at this, so the easement goes into the property yourself, but not all the way through that property.
That's my understanding.
Correct. It's only a 10-foot wide easement.
10 foot wide and 10 foot deep. So it appears that it does not touch the gas station property.
Correct.
Okay, just thank you.
Because their lot next door is that little narrow strip.
Right.
Right
yeah,
where that little office building is.
I see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The building next door literally goes from property line to property line.
Yeah.
Oh, the easement doesn't run the length of the property north-south. It's not 10 feet wide, the full north-south dimension of the subject property.
Correct. Yeah.
It is or is not?
It is not. It's just a little chunk of.
Little square?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes no sense. Okay.
Right.
That's what I thought too.
All right, I have a question for Mr. Murphy with regards to the parking spaces at the north. In the staff report, it indicated that there's a license agreement in place that requires the owner to essentially maintain what they're using of that public right away there or the easement there. did I state that correctly in the sense that there's a license agreement in place, the city still owns that property, the owner has the ability to use that property and is also responsible for the maintenance of that property?
And providing insurance, correct.
Got it, okay.
And the applicant, we are going to go through and trim everything up, take the dead material out, put in new material. Yep.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Douglas.
So I have a question, and this may be something that I was going to ask this after we came back to this side of the table, but I'll ask it now. So, Mr. Murphy, the number of parking spaces is based on both the coffee shop and the pharmacy.
Correct.
Right? And it assumes that there are customers at the pharmacy.
No.
No.
Well, the ordinance does.
If it's classified as a pharmacy,
Right, correct.
then there are rules about how many parking spaces you have to provide.
Per square foot of defined uses, it doesn't identify whether they're used for employee, the floor space is dedicated or utilized by employees or customers or both, or there's no difference.
Oh, okay, all right.
So the petitioner may have a successful operation where he has many people working in the pharmacy producing orders and then delivering them out, or he may just be himself. I don't know. But the ordinance doesn't have regard to the number of employees.
It doesn't differentiate between
Correct.
customers and employees, it's just parking spaces per square foot?
Yes, correct.
Thank you,
Yes.
got it.
And if you look on the overhead, you could see the 90-degree parking spaces there. That's existing.
I don't see any questions at the table just yet, so it might be an appropriate time to open the public comment. So this is a public hearing. We will take public comment on this agenda item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this right here?
Thank you, Council. My name is Alex Schmelzer. This is my first time speaking in a public hearing, so forgive me if I'm kind of all over the place, but are you able to pull up Google Maps really quick? So I am the owner and resident at 1606 Red Run Drive, which is the house on the west edge of the trees and the wall in question. So my first main concern is the comment on replacing the wall and again trimming the landscaping. What exactly does that look like, and how do we have insurance that, you know, the trees provide privacy for us, and again, without that privacy, that'd be a tremendous hit to the property value. So that's something we're significantly concerned about. So what does that look like? In addition, I also have a 14-month-old son. So when you talk about adding spaces 16, 17, 18 adjacent to that wall, that's only 20 feet from where he sleeps and where his bedroom's at. So if any of you are parents, you can understand that's a significant concern. He's starting to walk, run, play in the front yard. So again, all that additional traffic, people around, that's definitely an increased concern. Also, with the gas station in the back, we receive significant trash that comes over from our yard from people, patrons of that. So with the discussion of putting the dumpster in the back end corner, I get concerned, a restaurant, business, people coming in, throwing their trash, that things again now on the front part of the backyard and again the front yard, we're going to see increased trash and then additionally noise. During the wintertime, if the trees stay up, the vegetation dies, lights, traffic coming through, shining on the house. So those are, you know, some of the significant concerns I have that I hope the council will take into consideration as it relates to the petition. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak on this right here?
Good evening. My name is Andre Ashwell. I'm Alex's neighbor, and I am the owner of 1518 Red Run, which is the second parcel immediately to the left. I have similar concerns as Alex does regarding the trees especially. The plans note that the brick masonry wall needs to be removed and that this necessitates cutting back what is noted as evergreen vegetation. And I read that, and looking at the site, it seems like those are the trees on Alex's yard, which are the only visible barrier between our properties and, to some extent, the gas station, but especially this commercial development here. My wife and I are very excited for the addition of a coffee shop, but the additional traffic of a drive-through is concerning to us. Both the lights and the noise and the traffic being so nearby. It seems like something that is it's a very tight piece of land, and so we have some concerns about both the noise and especially the vegetation that may be removed. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? All right, seeing no hands, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, bring it back over to this side for discussion. Mr. Cooper.
The trees in question, are those on the residence property or are those on the commercial property?
They're on the residence property, but they're overgrowth trees. They have to understand that the wall's falling over because of some of the overgrowth trees that are right at the base of the wall that's pushing the tree over. So we're not removing the wall, we're taking the wall down and rebuilding the wall.
Sir, could you make sure to address the board?
Okay.
Thank you.
So that we're not eliminating the wall. I don't want them to think that we're limiting the wall. No, we're taking the wall down and rebuilding the wall. Let's see, there you go. See the trees that are behind there? They're staying. It's the ones that you see that are right at the 6-foot-high wall that's there that is overgrowth trees. And if we have to screen it once we clean that up, if the neighbor wants like arborvitaes or landscape screen added, we can do that. And the other question is that from the city standpoint, I don't know how far that lower wall needs to go. Normally you have a 10-foot sight line that goes that way into the property. So we were going to talk with the neighbor as far as on that wall right there, as far as how far the city requires the wall to be 6 feet versus not 6 feet. But we are definitely not taking away his trees and taking away the visibility of lights or whatever coming into the space. We're going to make sure that the wall is up there. It's just that it's not going to stand another year or two and the thing's going to be totally falling over because it's leaning a lot.
Mr. Mayor.
Can I make additional comment on this? I just want to assure my neighbors that we're good neighbors. I want to maintain a good relationship with my neighbor. So what I would say in this regard, I will do it the way that's convenient, that's according to the code and convenient to my neighbor to make everybody happy. I'm not there to make a situation that would bother my neighbor whatsoever. So I'm open for discussion with them before we do anything in this regard.
I'm sure they appreciate that. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, when I hear you say overgrowth, my understanding is you mean for the branches and stuff that are growing into the property line, because you would need that for the dumpster and parking. You wouldn't take those even smaller trees or whatever out. You would just trim the branches that are going into the property.
That, but there's also some that where the seeds have dropped along the wall. Okay? So if you look at the picture, there is some that is like right against the back side of the wall. That's what, because if we're going to take the wall down, we got to get all the way to the footing. And then we got to put dowel rods in the footing and then build that wall back up again. So anything that's against that wall that's pushing that wall over, we're going to remove. Okay? That's what we're looking at. But he has trees that are away from the wall. If you look at the picture, you see a couple of good-sized trees. Looks like about a 18-inch and a couple of 12-inch calipers. Those are going to stay.
Is the wall right on the property line?
The wall is right on the property line. Yes, it's on our property line.
But anything on the neighbor's property line, you wouldn't be able to touch.
Right. That's we're going to have to talk to the neighbor.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm just saying, even if, I mean, you're like, oh, if they're leaning up against the wall, technically, if the wall's built on the property line, then ergo, they would be, you'd have to get his permission.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
And then your argument on the ball is, hey, is it minimum 6? Do you want a taller wall? Whatever it is within the ordinance, you're willing to accommodate whatever the neighbor wants
Absolutely.
to the west.
Yes.
Okay. I think I understand.
Commissioner Douglas, did you have a question?
No.
Oh. Is there any other questions, discussion, questions for the applicant? I guess I do want to remind us all that, I believe I'm correct in this, there's 2 actions that we have to take.
Yep.
Special land use, then a site plan.
If the petitioner will extend the same courtesy that there isn't a full board tonight, and if you'd like the board to proceed, or if you'd like to postpone in the hopes that there are more members in the future.
I think we want to proceed.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yep, you're okay with proceeding. Mr. Cooper?
So just confirming again, the existing building is 2 suites. Is it 2 addresses? Just it's 1 address, 2 suites?
2 addresses.
And the one is vacant?
2, yes, correct.
Okay. And I did notice, it looks like you've already got a sign on the wall for the coffee shop?
It's approved.
The sign's
Sign.
approved?
The sign is approved.
Okay. That was it. That's all I had.
Okay.
Questions?
So I guess we'll tackle the special land use first. Is there a motion? More discussion?
I think my struggle with one is it's a tight site. I've driven it, I've seen it. It's I think trying to know how that meets the current codes and standards of what we had. Now, granted, it was approved back in '86. Not quite sure how their business operation was. And I don't think any of us have that information to look at, but just from a standpoint of even around trying to make that turn, I've got a full-size truck. It's tight to try to think of queuing cars and putting another.
We're not going to have any full-size trucks. We're not having any full-size trucks.
Well, if you've got a customer that comes in to go through your drive-through with a full-size truck, when you've got a
Oh,
like
yeah,
a full
I
lot.
thought you meant a semi-truck, I'm sorry.
No.
Because his pharmacy, he just has a FedEx van for his deliveries for the pharmacy. It's just a van for FedEx.
So with that, with how wide is a FedEx truck? Because I mean, we're looking at, with this new parking, I'm looking at spot number 5, and we've got 7'10" of clearance between. If you've got someone with a unless it's compact car only parking spot, theoretically you're not getting that truck through, or something's getting screwed up. Either it's a bollard or someone's back bumper.
I wanna propose something here regarding the 7. If you're talking about the 7 feet wide area, which is affecting only 1 or 2 parking lots. That's the only issue we have in there in terms of going in and out. And that's why I talked to my neighbor at the gas station to use 3 of his 3 parking spaces on his lot for my employees. And we can even eliminate this 1 or 2 parking spots completely. So in this case, if you would approve, this is going to solve this tight area in front of the vestibule and there, and the rest is 12.2 inches wide from the end of the parking lot up to my building. So the only congested area, is the 7 feet, 7 point some, I believe, that's affecting only 1 parking spot, I believe, which is spot number
5, I believe.
Yes, that's it. So we can eliminate this, considering that I have a written approval from my neighbor to use his parking, his property for 3 of my employees, and that's gonna add up to the 20 minus 1, 19 parking spots. Considering it's a closed door pharmacy, no in and out people, 4 employees in the closed door pharmacy, and you know, if we do the math, I'm to the most of my ability, I'm meeting the city codes here.
So I think these discussion points are actually more related to the site plan discussion. I think right now we should make sure we're tackling the special land use, which is really related to the coffee shop use.
Okay.
I guess I'll make a few comments related to that. I don't necessarily have an issue with the use of that front suite. I think having a coffee shop, small coffee shop, in proximity to a neighborhood where the neighborhood can walk or bike up to the coffee shop is actually an amenity. So from that perspective, I don't see many issues with, again, it's an allowable land use, right? It's just a special land use. So it's not as if the request is out of bounds by any means. So those are my thoughts on, I guess, on the special land use aspect of this. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, you know, a coffee shop, it's a great use of that extra space there. You're fitting, you know, an amenity into an already existing building, which, I mean, we'll talk about the site plan and traffic and all that, but in general, I mean, these are commercial corners. These are corners of commerce, and, you know, not to say a Chick-fil-A would go there, but there's a lot of different things that could go on a site. It's a challenge site, and if there's the ability to fit, you know, a amenity that is, for the most part, you know, a little bit lower intensity use because you don't have big deep fryers and, you know, big retail. You just have people are grabbing some coffee and, you know, moving along their day, I think makes sense to me. A bank, coffee shop, I mean, I don't see it as being an issue. You know, it was a bank for so many years, a doctor's office. I mean, a coffee shop seems reasonable to me, so I don't have a problem with the special land use.
Is that you forming a motion?
I don't like to make motions.
It would be my honor, though.
I mean, I can make a motion. I mean, I'm going to have to be clear. I'll have a lot of questions about the site plan and making sure it makes a lot of sense. But strictly from a land use point of view, I can make a motion to approve the requested special land use.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the special land use. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. Any discussion on the special land use? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, special land use has been approved. Now we can tackle the site plan. I guess I'll kick off the comments. I agree with Mr. Cooper. I drove the site. It's and I do have a truck. I'll be frank, and it was not comfortable driving through that drive-through because of how narrow and constrained the site is. I have concerns over the stacking. I have concerns over the escape lane. My feelings are that we're trying to cram a lot onto a site that is quite small. And while the use may be one that's, you know, an amenity, it's acceptable, that perhaps it just isn't the right site for what's being proposed. Those are, I guess, some of my comments. I'll leave it up to my colleagues to continue to discuss.
Yeah. Can you remind me the size of the spaces, like 11 through 15? What are the length of the spaces? Sorry, I don't have the...
Spaces, which?
11 through 15, the size of those spaces.
11 through 15. Those are 9 by 20.
9 by 20.
They're standard sizes.
Okay. And, okay, those are 9 by 20. And then the 1 through 10, remind me again. Oh, there, I can see it now, the measurements.
Yeah, the 1 through 10 is
yep,
the
they're
smaller ones. Yeah.
20 foot, 6 inch. Okay. And 9 by 20. Okay.
Commissioner Douglas.
I have a harebrained idea. So I'm just looking at this easement thing that goes into the property to the south. And I will say that one of the ideas in the newly approved master plan is to promote more internal traffic and passage through properties. And I'm just thinking that if, in fact, an easement was negotiated all the way onto the gas station property, and if the gas station owners were amenable, people could exit through the gas station onto 12 Mile. And that's probably an insurmountable suggestion, but I guess maybe it just illustrates the desirability of making those sorts of agreements possible in a city to help smooth out traffic patterns. Discuss. Or not.
I actually think it's a pretty innovative and novel approach.
Would you allow me for one more comment about your comment?
Yeah, because that was pretty harebrained. Go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
I would have to agree with you in the middle of the side where the pharmacy entrance is, the vestibule that's making the parking lot. When there is a
Would
park.
you speak into the microphone, please?
Sure. The side vestibule is the pharmacy entrance. I would have to agree that's moving in front of this vestibule, considering the stopper, the concrete stopper in front of the vestibule, then a parking car across, making the moving in this area a little tight. So I would have to agree with you on that one, 100%. But the rest around the building is not tight at all. So that's why I'm suggesting to eliminate the parking spots in front of the vestibule, and that would allow a lot of space for maneuver, and making in and out is much more convenient to people, even when you have a truck, because this is the only tight space moving in and out of my building. So I agree with your point. I see it myself. I go in and out every day. I want what I put in to be convenient and to be a place for people to hang out and to be happy and not to have a problem with parking or anything like that. I want to agree with you, but this is what I'm proposing as a solution for it that would make in and out much, much easier.
Or the other option would be, those are compact car spots. That would be the other option. There, you just had a photograph of the existing site. I'll go back. If you can show that back up again, you can see there's a car parked on the angle along Red Run, and there's a car driving past it. So it's not, you know, it's tight, but it's not doable. I mean, it is doable, obviously, because it's done every day there. I was there yesterday, and there was a car parked right there by the door, and I just drove right past it and drove right in the back, behind the building.
But again, if you see it like a little tight, you know, I would be happy to eliminate this parking spot, you know what I mean, and make it easy for people in and out. That's not going to be an issue for me whatsoever, considering, you know, we added parking spots. You know, hopefully that would be approved in this regard. The number of parking spots is going to be 19, not 20, but still 19 as a total. But if you bring your truck next time and you know, and consider this parking spot is eliminated, you're going to see how easy to get in and out.
Mr. Cooper?
Well, I think the concern is not just a passenger vehicle, but if you have an emergency vehicle, a fire truck or ambulance needs to get in there, that's the main concern of the width as well. So, and also you say if you have a FedEx truck that pulls in to pick up your deliveries in and out, it's the concern of that. So signs are great. People don't generally follow them. I think the elimination of that parking spots, as long as you have others to give, would probably be the best solution.
I'm dealing with pharmaceutical companies. My order is small, yes, but they sometimes deliver using semi-trucks, and they come in and out through this. With total understanding to your point, I think you have a very valid point, but in terms of practicality and what's been happening already on the site, and considering that I'm dealing with big pharmaceutical companies that bring my order every single day, I I don't see it, even if it's ambulance or fire truck or anything, there is enough space for that. As I said, me personally, I don't like anybody to park in this parking spot in front of the vestibule. I would eliminate it regardless, and to make it convenient for everybody, regardless if my petition approved or not. It's convenient for everybody. But beside that, I've seen semi-trucks moving through my building with no issue whatsoever.
Commissioner Douglas?
So is there, sorry, I can't tell by looking at this, is there handicap parking required on this site? And how about if you made that space the blue handicap accessible part? That is the handicap van, let us say, pulls up to the west of it, and to the east, right in front of the vestibule, is the blue striped handicap unloading.
We do have a handicap spot. It's the first one in there. That's where it's at currently.
Are you proposing to move it so that the
Yeah.
free area next to
Yeah,
it
that takes, then that
encompasses-
deals with that area by the vestibule.
Yeah, we could move it to the vestibule and then end up with a hatched out area that's 8+8. We have to we're gonna restripe the lot anyway, so we could just restripe it.
Anyway, that might be a solution to that problem.
But isn't there a requirement for handicap spots to the,
Closest to the door.
yep, the door of the business? Because I think you're gonna need that for accessibility for the coffee shop, so that kind of alleviates that.
And to be clear, there is no connection from the coffee shop space to the pharmacy space. No internal connection,
It's
correct?
two separate addresses.
Two separate.
Two suites.
Same address, but two suites.
I was trying.
Yeah.
I was trying.
Correct.
And remind me again, you said you spoke to the gas station owner and he's verbally agreed to provide 3 parking spaces?
We provide a signed letter from him as well.
But that would need to still be codified somehow and...
The petitioner would still be required to seek a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals from the minimum required number of parking spaces. The only way that we would be able to acknowledge that agreement between the two parties is if the gas station owner had an excess of parking spaces that they could then essentially, so we would have to go through a whole analysis of that.
Okay.
That makes sense, though.
I will say that the adjacent property owner was approved quite a few years ago now for a redevelopment of the 2 sites that they own, the gas station site as well as the vacant commercial storefront. They were approved for a redevelopment for a new filling station that encompassed everything.
Oh.
And that approval still stands to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
I promise you're going to have a good coffee there. And it's going to be a cozy, upscale kind of seating as well. So I'm planning it to make it like a go-to spot. Small one, but a go-to spot for the people in the area for sure.
Mr. Mayor.
So, like when I look at the drawings, I see about 3 tables in there. So 10 total seats. So, yeah, I mean, if you think about human behavior and, you know, pulling a large truck through the drive-through, I know that when I happen to be driving large vehicles, not always, sometimes I don't even I decide not to go through the drive-through. Often it's because it's, you know, temporary car or whatever, and I'll just park. And I think the spots there are adequate. And there's also, you know, out under Red Run, if you get someone that wants to abort the mission altogether, first time they pull in and they're like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm just going to go to McDonald's. You know, that I think is adequate there for as you're pulling in. And if you don't like making that turn, if there's no cars stacked and there's no cars parked in 16 through 18, you can make that turn. But there will be cases where the lot is completely full, I imagine, or partially full, cars stacked. And a large vehicle might just abandon the operation and pull out into Red Run and do something different, or come back in and park. That could happen. A lot of times behavior is self-correcting. So coffee shops are usually regular users. No offense, but it's not like a destination where someone from out of the area is searching Starbucks, because they love Starbucks. It's a national brand, and, they're coming from wherever, traveling. So you would build up a local clientele that would understand the dynamics of it. The tightness of the lanes is a little bit of a concern for me. I think the idea that back in 1986, cars were wide and long too, and it was a bank. It seemed to work. We're just saying instead of getting money, you're giving money and getting coffee. So I think that, those are my initial thoughts on it right now. I think the wall needs to be really thoughtfully done, and I'd like to hear my colleagues' thoughts on the wall if all the other issues are resolved on the west end, how high it should be, what latitude we can give the the petitioner to work with their neighbor. So those are just my thoughts right now.
Floyd's greatest, I would say.
Mr. Olson.
Question for Joe. Has the fire department signed off on this?
They did review it. I don't recall whether they had any concerns or not. Oftentimes we don't hear from them in time. But if they did give us something that was a concern, it would have absolutely been noted in the report.
Yeah, I guess my point is, if the fire department looked at it and they figured they can get a truck through there, then
I would say more than likely they wouldn't even attempt to get a truck in there.
no, but they've got to be able to get their vehicles and access to fight a fire. Every
They can
time I've been
they
up
can get
here, it's
close.
always been, you've got to have access around the building.
And they have that. They have foot access.
Okay.
And I would say too, an ambulance would be able to pull right in there from the coffee shop if there's an issue, service the patient and pull out into Red Run as well. So the ambulance isn't going to be doing the loop necessarily in that particular case.
No.
I wouldn't hope, hey, we got a patient, let's grab a coffee before we go to Beaumont.
My main concern was just going by that front entrance.
I have a quick question on the escape lane, or the lack of one. That area itself is the biggest issue with the escape lane is just, there is space, it's just simply narrow. Is that correct? Okay.
And by the way, it's narrow only toward the front end piece of the building, but like 2/3 of the building, it's wide enough. Only toward the end, toward Campbell Road. That's the only small area of the narrow part.
And on the site plan, the traffic sign that's indicated at that southeast corner, is that something that's being added? Is that an existing sign? What is
That's
that?
existing right now, and I would talk to the building department when we get, or whoever we need to talk to, and I don't know if they had a right turn only, because whatever they had there is gone, okay?
So it's just a pole now, no sign?
It's a pole with a box, and it's a blank box.
I see.
Yeah, there's nothing up there now, so.
Oh, but it's on the other side of that curb.
Yeah.
It's concrete.
Was that
We're going to be removed.
That's the drop off, I think.
I wonder if that was a watch for pedestrians, because you're coming right up on the sidewalk?
Yeah.
But as I see this now, I'm looking, forgive me for interrupting, but you've got 20 foot 3 inches basically from outside of building to outside of building. That curb in existence is pretty far off, so you don't even have the room that we think. You're true.
And the new plan shows the curbing to move closer to that building.
You're removing that, moving it, okay.
Yeah.
The curb on the right side, though, is that the delineation of where that 18-inch drop off you mentioned? Is that essentially where that is?
No, it's right there. There's the drop off.
I see,
right
okay.
there.
So all this is going to be removed, the concrete stoppers or whatever you call it.
Yeah, we don't need those
We
bumpers
don't
there.
need the bumpers.
Got it.
All this going to be removed. This is since the bank, since,
That was the bank, yeah.
I see.
You can see the drive-through where the bank is, see the two lines? The two drive-through, and then the aisle that was filled in, yeah. They took out the vacuum machines, and then put concrete in there and just, yeah, that's where the two drive-through lanes were.
Okay.
So there was no escape lane from the drive-through lane. It was like, if you're in the drive-through, you're in the drive-through, and you couldn't get around it.
Any more, Commissioner Douglas?
Not questions, I mean, are we, when we're done with the petitioners, or are we done with the petitioners?
Well, I guess that's what I want to make sure, if there was any other questions.
This is not a petitioner question.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, you guys can have a seat for now. We'll let you know.
Can I ask one question? You never addressed the mayor's question about the screen wall.
Oh, was there a question on the screen wall? I'm sorry.
Just what my colleagues thought on it, but we'll get to that up here, yeah.
All right.
So here's my comment. Site plans are, when we approve site plans, really we're approving them for the benefit of everybody else but the owner, in a way. That is, we are here to protect public safety, et cetera. And then there's the question of what risks there are to the property owner, which are sort of not our problem. That is, if they've proposed this, like, you know, tight parking spot with the risk of people bumping into each other, with the inability of cars to get through the escape lane next to the drive-through, that's kind of their problem, and their insurance company's problem at some point. And so I guess I don't see that there's a public risk in approving this site plan. So, I mean, I'm interested to hear other commissioners' comments on that, but I might be moved to move on that subject.
I'll go ahead and comment on that. My initial concerns with the site plan were really mostly centered around the narrowness of that escape lane and how tight the site is. Through our discussions here, I think I have a better understanding of circulation patterns around there, despite the fact that I did drive it today. In full disclosure, I did not pull in off of Campbell. I pulled in off the entrance off of Red Run and pulled through the drive-through. I think what's been discussed around how to handle the narrowness of the north side of the property was a good discussion. I am much more satisfied with the site plan in terms of how a vehicle could escape through there if they needed to. It's tight, but I think there's room. And I tend to agree with Commissioner Douglas in the sense that there's, you know, certain things that just really aren't our purview and not necessarily for us to consider. So I was not necessarily in favor of the site plan initially, but through the discussion, I do feel much more comfortable. I don't know if a motion comes forward, if we need to put in that motion anything related to the discussion around elimination of the parking spaces adjacent to the north of the bollards there. That might change the parking deficiency calculation if that's the case. So we might need to address that in any motion. To get back to the mayor's question about the screen wall, I would think any lowered section or I guess any dimension of that screen wall would still need to be subject to, what is it, the 10-foot vision triangle? But barring that, a higher screen wall could, you know, come as far north as possible to help protect the neighbors. But then there still is the safety issue where you'd want to make sure you maintain that 10-foot sight triangle. So those are my comments. Mr. Cooper.
I'd agree with that comment too. I think it's the parking can be there or can be eliminated, but ultimately that's going to be a deficiency that has to go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals too. So we're just granting permission to go in front of that and let them make the ultimate decision. I think from a general standpoint now, understanding, I was with you of driving through today, I'm like, I don't know how they're going to do this. But I think as we talk through and figuring and seeing the updated layout, it's worked before. I think it can work again. There's going to be some challenges that I think that you guys will need to work through and figure out as part of your business. With regards to the wall, I think there should be some language or something documented in there. I think that, you know, clearly work with a neighbor because you're dealing with landscaping that's on his property. If it's there and it's going to be a problem, maybe you fix the wall and 2 years down the road you've got overgrowth that's pushing that wall or affecting that wall again. I think that's hey, let's collectively look at, can I help you solve your problem and maybe put an alternative means of landscape in there that's permanent, and it's going to satisfy everybody, and not knock the wall down that you need for your privacy as well. So again, it's, you know, where it's situated, there's a house butted up to commercial property, and it's been like that for how long, and that's just something you need to figure out and work with. And I think you've got some good level-headed people that can figure that out. I just think that we should document that in some way, shape, or form of saying we're going to agree to work with collectively to find a solution amongst ourselves, if we can do that.
Regarding the screening wall, ordinance requires that within the front yard setback of the adjacent home that the screening wall go from 6 feet in height and it drop down to no more than 3 feet in height, unless you feel it's appropriate that it continue to be taller the entire way or up to a certain point. But that's the typical standard, is that once it hits the front yard setback of the adjacent home, it drops down in height. Okay. And we'll take a look at the Google Street View image again, and that's essentially what the condition is, the current condition.
What do we think their front yard setback is, 25 feet?
I'm not sure. You could relate the motion to within the front yard setback of the adjacent home, the screening wall shall be no taller than a particular amount.
And if it was decided that it was to go longer at a higher height, would that be something else that has to go in front of the ZBA for a variance?
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on that, but if it is, we'll add it to the list.
Okay.
And they would still be subject to the 10-foot site?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion? Questions? Mr. Ellison?
I'll just add my comments. I think we've got a petitioner here, excuse me, got a petitioner here who's got a very unique piece of property, and he's got to come up with a unique way to use it. Is a pharmacy and is a coffee house. One of the things that impresses me the most is the way he's stacking the cars towards the back of the property, as opposed to some of our other favorite coffee shops that stack the cars out on Woodward. So I think that it's, you know, because they've got their drive-through and their pickup way up towards the front of the building. So I did notice that. But I mean, there's going to be hardships to work out. It's going to be a case of getting in there and finding out what works. We can't have all the answers tonight. It's not a perfect plan, but it's not a bad plan. So I could be supporting it.
Well, was that a motion?
Oh, you looking for a motion?
If there's no other questions or discussion or comments, that's sort of the next step we'd be looking for here.
So okay, is there? Yeah, this is the site plan memo, I think. Okay. I'll move to approve the site plan as spelled out in the staff's recommendation. We've got 10 contingencies. I don't think there's any other that we needed to add on that to this discussion.
Okay.
Do we want to put something in there about the wall?
Yeah.
And the 2 parking spots?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that. Item number 2 is removal of space 18. And there was
Removal of spot 5.
Yes, 3 and 5 I think we're supposed to go, but I'm not seeing that in there.
6 and 5, or
Yeah, 5 and 6.
6 and 5.
Let's add that, can we add that into number 2 with the removing parking spaces 5, and was it 5 and 3?
5 and 6.
5 and 6.
5 and 6. Okay. I think I've got everything in there then, I think. Does that work?
The wall?
Did you mention the wall?
What do you want to say about the wall? I mean, what do we decide? I mean, it's going to be a 6-foot wall, right? I wondered, I mean, it's got to be 6 foot, right, Joe?
It needs to be 6 feet until it reaches the front yard setback of the
And then
adjacent
it
home,
will
and then
be,
it drops
because
down, unless you feel it's appropriate to be higher for a longer
Well,
span.
I was thinking to getting back closer to a lower wall, a 30-inch wall that, you know, screens the headlights. going back in there. Because one of the problems I've always had with 6-foot walls in an area like that is it creates hidey holes for people to stand back and hide behind that fence. And it just creates an issue. But if the ordinance says, and we've done it, then we need to have a 6-foot new masonry wall. And I would drop it down, just like it's got there now, down to 30 inches or 3 foot, whatever it is, to allow vision out to the, and whatever specifications required to triangle the 10 foot. Does that make any sense?
I think
I wasn't prepared to make a motion, but you put me on the
Well,
spot.
you didn't have to. I was just asking. Did you get all that?
We have the motion, the suggested motion that's provided in the report with the added contingency of removing parking spaces number 5 and 6, plus the westerly screening wall being no higher than 30 inches tall within the front yard setback of the adjacent dwelling.
That sounds like my motion.
That's how I understand. That's how I understand it as well. So that is the motion on the table. Is there support?
I just have one question though, because we had parking spot 18, which is on what was submitted, but the revised that was handed to us today deviates from that. So do we need to include parking spot 18 being removed?
Yes, because you're considering the site plan that was included in your
Yes.
packet, not
Yep.
any handout. Okay.
Yep.
Would you be willing to amend your motion to include the removal of parking spot 18?
I think it's, yeah.
Was it? Okay.
It is?
Okay.
Oh,
Number 2.
I'm sorry. Okay,
So
so
now
motion
I'm
on the
clear.
table.
We're good. I will second.
Okay, there's the motion on the table, seconded by Mr. Cooper. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. You have a site plan. Congratulations. Okay.
We want to be good neighbors, we want to talk to the neighbors.
That's what we like to hear. Talk to the neighbors.
Thank you. All right, moving on the agenda here to other business. Item 6A, review of the zoning ordinance RFQ. Mr. Murphy. If you folks wouldn't mind going out into the lobby.
Gentlemen,
If we can have you step out into the lobby so that we can proceed to the next item, you can continue your conversation in the lobby or at the bar.
Good one. Yeah.
So the day after you adopted the master plan, we sent out a request for qualifications across the nation for firms to submit their qualifications to us that they could help us write a new zoning ordinance based on, in light of the approval of the master plan. That deadline has since passed, and we had 9 responses, which are all included in the hyperlinks in the memorandum with regard to it. So it's appropriate for you to narrow down the list of firms that you think are qualified in order to go to the next step, which is for those selected firms to be able to provide you a response to a request for proposals. So far more detailed as to what they're going to do for us. What you have in front of us tonight is their corpus of work to try and convince you that their firm is the preferred firm to be able to then submit a bid price for the actual work. So it's appropriate tonight for you to narrow down that list. We have a suggested motion which includes a list of firms that staff believes are appropriate to move forward to that next step. You certainly have the ability to agree with that or modify it as you see fit.
Questions for Mr. Murphy? Commissioner Douglas.
So, Mr. Murphy, as we now issue a request for proposals, will you write specifications for what you want to see in those proposals, and what are the steps in the process?
I would mark it similar to the master plan process in that staff will write the request for proposals. If the planning commission believes it's appropriate to look at that language before it's sent out to whichever firms you choose today, that's entirely appropriate, so that you make sure that it also includes what you would like them to accomplish for us, because this will be the basis for entering into contract. So it is entirely appropriate for you to look at the next step, which is the language for the request for proposals, and to make sure it includes what you wish to see as well. So we can certainly accomplish that and get that to you at your next meeting. And once you approve that language, we can then distribute it to the firms that are selected. Give them about 5 or 6 weeks at a minimum to get a response, and then start to look at those responses and determine which firms are worthy of bringing in or having an interview with, and narrowing down the list to selecting one particular firm that we can present to the City Commission for entering into contract and getting started. So I think that process takes quite a few months, and we're certainly on track to hopefully enter into contract by the end of the calendar year.
And we saw in the master plan process that we invited X, I can't remember the number, X number of firms to submit a proposal, and not all of them did. So we might expect that to be the case here. That is, you have I don't know, 5 firms? I mean, what's your number here? 6 firms that you recommended, and it's probably to our interest to invite multiple firms to do that, just on the chance that some of them will say, nah, I don't want it, right?
That is very well taken. That between now and when we send out the good news to them, they may say, well, we already took on 3 more jobs and now we don't have time to help you.
Right.
That does happen all the time. So yes, the more, the merrier.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks.
I've got a quick question. So staff is recommending that 6 of the 9 responding firms sort of move to the next phase and be sent an RFP. Can you provide a little bit of color as to either what were some of the either qualifying or disqualifying conversations that got us to got staff to the 6 firms that are being recommended?
Mm-hmm. We have some history with those that are local and those that assisted us more recently. We were very happy to see that there were more national firms that we drew their attention. The national firms that we were not aware of before, I think that they demonstrated that they have many of the abilities that we're looking for, and to help us write a new successful ordinance. It's not to say that the others necessarily don't have that skill set. The Planning Commission can determine whether you would like to have the firms that were not specifically listed also participate. But you know, we've had our experience with all of those remaining firms, and I think it's appropriate for you to decide whether you feel they have, number one, the skill set and the attention that you deserve in writing a new zoning ordinance. And some of that bears out in our experience with them previous.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I did actually spend the larger part of my Sunday afternoon, if not reading thoroughly all of these qualifications, at least skimming them, and of the firms that staff have recommended, I thought they all had really impressive lists of clients with relevant experience, projects with relevant experience, extremely qualified staff. I mean, just as you said, a very high level of national firms coming to us interested in our work. So I don't think there's a dog in the bunch.
All right. Any other comments?
What is the ultimate goal? How many proposals do we ultimately want to have to vet out? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it as many as we get?
I personally think the more the merrier.
Right.
As Commissioner Douglas had noted, we're really drawing the attention of some well-recognized national firms, and that is testimony to what you've accomplished with the master plan and clearly the direction that you set that you want to move forward in. And so many of these firms are probably entering entertaining this offer as the first Michigan, we'd be the first Michigan client, maybe even the first Midwest client. So kudos to you to drawing the attention of some firms and the work that you're doing and the direction you want to head. And I think many of these firms have clearly shown their corpus of work to provide us with some insight to things that we haven't thought of before. And certainly that was what was called for in the master plan, is to go in a different direction and take a different look at things. And many of these firms have clearly shown that they can accomplish that.
And also, just with my experience of doing this, is you start to oversaturate your request for bids. Sometimes they'll look and say, I'm competing against 12 firms. I don't feel I can be competitive, and they might bow out. So I think if you really hone it in, I think 6 is probably the right number to go at it and probably get the best participation.
And they're going to those that are successful with tonight's decision, they're going to go out and talk to all of their their friends that work in the industry and try and come to you with a proposal that involves other clients that have their expertise. So not a single one of these, I think, has the ability to do everything that we envision the new zoning ordinance should do. And that's not a knock against them, but we're looking at something that's going to be very unique, and they'll need to pair up with other firms, and that's, I think, where a lot of the fun begins, is to see how they really truly collaborate with others that have expertise in particular fields.
I'll just make one quick comment. We oftentimes defer to and rely on staff and the expertise that's there to help guide us. And I think this situation is no different. I've got very limited experience with maybe just a couple of these firms. Don't have any experience with most of the firms. I did, probably not to the degree that Commissioner Douglas did, but did look at the information from the firms. But my mind kept going back to deferring to relying on the experts that have put this forward and the experts that are on staff. So I'm comfortable with what's in front of us.
I agree. So is that a motion?
He can't make a motion.
I can't make a motion. Commissioner Douglas.
I will move that we request proposals from the 6 firms recommended by staff.
There is resolution language in the...
Oh, is there? Yes, the motion is that we adopt the suggested resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the motion on the table is to adopt the suggested resolution language. Is there support?
I will second that motion.
Support from Mr. Cooper. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. We've got a selection of firms to reach out to. Wonderful. Okay. Next item of business, the City of Madison Heights Master Plan.
That is just for your information. Just like we had to notify adjacent communities at the start of our master plan process, they're doing that as well. And we wish them well, and we look forward to any concepts that we can jointly work on, since we do share a border and important thoroughfares.
Great. Thank you.
Chair, I'd just like to
Mr.
note
Mayor.
that in their letter, they adopted their master plan in 2021. 4 years later, they're totally updating it. So that's could be a really good thing, but it just goes to show that other communities were moving a little bit quicker than we were to adopt a new master plan.
Good point. Point well taken. Any other comments for the betterment of the community? Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I would like to know if anyone at the table knows what the pirate paid for his ear piercings.
What did the pirate pay for his ear piercings?
Buccaneer.
Buccaneer.
I knew that joke, but I wasn't going to parrot it.
All right.
And does anyone know where Captain Hook got his hook? At the secondhand store.
Oh boy. Okay.
I move we adjourn. On that note.
Is there a second? Okay, second from Mr. Mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right.
We are
adjourned.
Brian said parlay earlier, completely got away with it, so I'd just like to point that out.
He also said something about oars in the water, and I said, was that a pirate joke? And he said, no.
Oh, I said Viking ship, not pirate ship, so
But-
you've been watching me through Good Eye all day. I've been